Chapter 789. In the face of the Paragon's ferocious attack, Qin Guang's face split into a grin. Tremble, weak scum. His hands shot out, his fingertips glinting with a cold light. His claws dug into the ball as if he didn't care for his life. As the giant ball slammed into him, Qin Guang's hands dug a hole in its surface. That's right, he'd applied the sharpness of the Earth Ripper's arms to his own hands. His claws were hard and sharp, and he was like a human excavator. The ball smashed into the ground with a resounding boom, but Qin Guang was still suspended in the air. His hands had dug a hole in the surface of the ball. In this extremely short period of time, he actually managed to dig through the ball. The speed at which he dug the hole was as fast as the speed at which the ball came. If he only had his Qilin arms, it would have been impossible for him to dig at such a frightening speed. However, he had used the Ripper's ability to compress his joints to increase his explosive power. Needless to say, it was extremely useful. His joints were like a small electric motor, shaking like a sieve. What's even scarier is that unlike the Ripper's gelatinous joints that age, Lord Light says that my joints can heal on their own and won't rot. After unleashing its ultimate skill, the Paragon of Earth's control over the Earth seemed to have waned. Qin Guang's buoyancy dissipated, and he slowly floated back to the ground. Although the Paragon's size was frightening, and its special abilities were dazzling, they weren't unlimited. There was a cooldown. When Qin Guang landed, he didn't give the Paragon time to catch his breath. If he allowed the Paragon to float, he wouldn't be able to move again. His knees buckled, and Qin Guang shot forward like a bolt of lightning. This time he was even faster than the Ripper. He was a blur, and in the blink of an eye he was at the Paragon's feet. Wind God's kick combined with the Ripper's abilities was amazing. Qin Guang felt that he could even beat Wen now. Without a second thought he reached out and grabbed the Paragon's foot. His fingers dug deep into the creature's skin, and he began to climb up like a rock climbing wall. Finally, Qin Guang stopped at the Paragon's calves. He hardened his legs and dug them into the rock. Directly in front of him was the Paragon's knees. Without hesitation, Qin Guang stretched out his demon claws and scratched the spot. I'll catch him. I scratch. I'll scratch, scratch, scratch. The enemy was too big, and Qin Guang's words came true. If he said he wanted to dismantle the Gundam with his bare hands, he could only dismantle the Gundam with his bare hands. The Paragon of Earth didn't feel pain, but how could he not be annoyed by the flea's tickling? Boom! He slapped his huge palm on his knee as if he was swatting a mosquito. In a way, he really was swatting a mosquito. For a moment, Qin Guang was nothing more than a bloody mark on the Paragon's knee. But after a few moments the Paragon was back to life. He continued to scratch, without explanation, until he dug through. Poor Paragon of Earth. Despite its strength, it was helpless against an enemy it couldn't kill. It hopped, and even slammed its knee into the ground. But it was all in vain. 10 minutes later, the Paragon of Earth's body trembled. It fell to its knees, half kneeling. Qin Guang had dug a hole through one of its knees. The Paragon used its discipline again, trying to lift Qin Guang into the air. But the flea had already switched legs. It clung to the knee and continued to dig. An hour passed, and the Paragon was dead. Grapefruit-flavored fruit candy, sweet and delicious. Lioli, are you done? Wait a bit longer. Qin Guang looked at the black, smoky figure in front of him. Yes, it was called the Destroyer of Earth. It was strong, terrifying, and frightening. It stood there motionless, sinking deeper and deeper into the earth. It was as if its destructive discipline was based on corrosion. But it wasn't just corrosion. The earth beneath it disintegrated into fine powder that drifted in all directions like smoke. This was the power of decomposition, and it was very powerful. Then, Qin Guang dealt with the Destroyer of Earth. The method wasn't complicated. All Qin Guang had to do was wait until the destroyer had completely sunk into the ground. Then he sent the Paragon's condensed mud to the destroyer, burying it alive. Strictly speaking, this wasn't burying him alive, but the Earth Destroyer didn't seem to be able to control its decomposition and destruction ability. Hence, it was exhausted to death by the soil that Qin Guang was constantly sending over. Qin Guang was embarrassed. He hadn't expected to combine his regenerative powers with his discipline. Earth manipulation didn't have a cooldown. Sigh, it was a bit of a bully. Blackuram-flavored fructose, crunchy. At this moment, Qin Guang had a total of 4 abilities fused into his body. Earthquake Tremors Regeneration, Ripper's Super Hard Body and Tear, Paragon's Earth Manipulation, and Destroyer's Earth Disintegration. He felt like he had become Superman. If God stood in his way, he would kill God and Buddha. He was just that strong, just that arrogant, just that unreasonable. He silently turned around and looked at the signal tower at the top of the mountain. Master Guang thought to himself, according to the typical online game, I should be at max level and have gathered a full set of godly equipment. It's time for Lori to open the passage and enter the real world of punishment, right? Humph. A mere world of punishment wasn't worth mentioning. It didn't matter what kind of opponents Shui Lin, Wu Miaowan, and the others encountered in the world of punishment. The old driver was fearless. The old man had 4 superpowers. He could crush them all in minutes. Lady Lori, are you done yet? I've already taken care of all the opponents. Qin Guang was about to go up the mountain. Unexpectedly, Lori replied anxiously, I'm afraid you'll have to wait a little longer. It's a little difficult. It's fine. I can wait. Qin Guang replied in his heart. Oh, right. I've just taken care of a guy called Earth Destroyer. I now have 4 godly skills. Lori was burning with impatience and couldn't be bothered with him. Yo, there's a new guy called Earth Chaotic Being. Hurry up, Lori. I'm about to have a bumper harvest here. Qin Guang smiled as he bragged to Lioli in his heart. At the same time, he looked at the so-called chaos being before him and thought to himself, the candies given by this brother are probably dragon fruit flavored. Unexpectedly, he heard Lori's panicked roar in his mind. Not good. Hurry and run. What's wrong? You're not a match for Earth Chaotic Being. You're definitely not a match for it. Hurry and run. Don't get caught by it. Hold on a little longer. I'll open a passage here as soon as possible. Then you can come over and escape into the world of punishment. Qin Guang was surprised. Really? Is it that scary? It's that scary. You'll be dead if you get caught. When have I ever joked with you? Qin Guang looked at the red ball in front of him. It seemed to be glowing like a human heart. Thinking about it carefully, Lori probably wouldn't joke about such an important matter. In other words, if she said that he was not a match for it, then he would definitely lose. The old man wasn't feeling well. He had to leave first. Run. Chapter 790. Meanwhile, on the mountaintop, ever since Enchanting and Lu Fei came up, Enchanting first used her 1000 Despair Sec's secret manual to unlock the reinforced security door of the communication base station. The 2 of them entered the room and took out the strange water cup according to Qin Guang's instructions and placed it on the equipment cabinet. After that, the 2 of them thought of returning to the mountainside to check on Qin Guang's situation. Enchanting especially felt that she was skilled in martial arts, so she was unwilling to be left out. However, Lioli had already anticipated this situation. In order to prevent the 2 of them from going down the mountain and disturbing Qin Guang, Lioli had already asked Lu Ming to use the power of the Holy Grail that she controlled after fusing with the Heavenly Holy Grail to completely seal off the house of the communication base station. Although the security door could be opened, there was an invisible barrier that could not be seen but could be felt at the door, firmly blocking the door. Enchanting and Lu Fei couldn't get out at all. Even if they tried to jump out of the window, it was useless. They were still bounced back. Ever since they came to the foot of Mount Baral, the 2 of them had seen countless unnatural phenomena that were beyond their understanding. At this time, they were no longer surprised. The loud rumbling sound from the mountainside did not stop. Although the two of them were frightened, there was nothing they could do. Qin what's going on now? Lu Fei sat cross-legged in the corner of the floor of the communication base station, rubbing her hands together continuously. Qin opened her mouth, but she didn't know how to explain it to her. If I say I don't know, you won't think that I'm fooling you, right? Lu Fei shook her head. How could that be? By the way, I heard from Uncle Tai Shinju that Miss Xian is also a martial artist. What kind of people in the martial arts world are they? If it was the Xian of the past, she wouldn't even bother to respond to an ordinary person who asked her such a question. But now, Xian knew that Lu Fei was also Qin Guang's friend, and that perverted bureau chief probably cared a lot about this hot, rich young lady. In a sense, she was also considered one of them. Actually, there's nothing special about it. We've been brought up by people with special abilities since we were young. Then, regardless of whether we're willing or not, there would be a person or a group of people who would constantly tell us that you're a genius, that you're a peerless genius selected from thousands of people, and that only you can inherit the unique technique of the martial arts sect. This sect or family has been passed down for so many years. We raised you, and the meaning of your life is to restore this sect to its former glory. In this way, day after day, year after year, we learned the skills that our elders taught us. In the process of learning, our elders would constantly tell us that there are countless people who want to learn these skills, but they are not valued, they are not trusted, and they do not have the talent to learn these skills like we do. We are different. We are powerful. People like you, Sister Lu Fei, should be ordinary people in our eyes. People like you, Sister Lu Fei, should be ordinary people in our eyes. Some martial arts sects are more extreme. In the eyes of these sects, ordinary people are equivalent to ants or even tools. The meaning of ordinary people's existence is to serve people in the martial arts world. But my master is not like this. My master told me that although ordinary people don't have the talent to practice martial arts, in other words, we're actually just ordinary people with a little more talent. It's true that we can jump higher and run faster, but ordinary people are human beings, and we are also human beings. There's no difference in essence. Ordinary people need to get married and have children to support their families, but the responsibility on the shoulders of martial arts practitioners is different. We don't have to get married and have children, and we don't have to support our families. But our family is the sect, and the meaning of our existence is to carry forward the sect, or to continue the family line. Perhaps the special situation made Xian let go of the knot in her heart, and she said a lot in one breath. Lu Fei listened with great interest, but also felt that it was unbelievable. Isn't getting married and having children important? Isn't having children to continue the family line? That's what all human beings do. Xian shook her head. Only some clan-based forces would pay special attention to marriage and having children. For ordinary sects, the talent to practice martial arts can't be inherited. Take me for example. Although I'm the most talented disciple in the Thousand Despair sect, if I have children, my children may not be able to practice martial arts. To practice martial arts, one's innate talent, understanding, and opportunities are all very important, and none of them can be missing. The way we continue the family line is to train disciples, and let them inherit our martial arts skills. That's considered carrying on the family line. This is not the same as the world view of ordinary people, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. What about Qin Guang? What kind of person had he become now? I have a feeling that this incident has something to do with him, right? Lu Fei asked again. Xian nodded. It has something to do with him, but you asked me what kind of person he has become. I don't know. I didn't know before, but now I can be a little more certain. What? He's a more special existence than martial arts practitioners. He's the stinky director who hides 10,000 secrets. Xian murmured fiercely. Whether it was the strange change in Qin Guang's innate talent when he was bathing or what happened in Wutua town today, it all proved that Qin Guang's secrets were bigger than the sky. Sigh, but I saw that his expression when he asked us to go up the mountain didn't look right. I hope nothing happens to him at the foot of the mountain." The mountain began to shake again, and Lu Fei was even more worried. "Don't worry. Good people don't live long, but bad people live for 1,000 years. Ah. How can a sinister person like the stinky director die so easily?" "All right, thank you for your kind words." Lu Fei was not used to Enchanting's ironic style, so she just thought that she was praying for Guang. At that moment, Guang's phone vibrated in Enchanting's hand. She picked it up and saw that it was a voice message from Wu Miaowan. "Little darling. Not good. We've been ambushed. The entire Wutua town is filled with people from the shattered world. We were ambushed when we were halfway there. These people are so scary, they're all monsters. They've all turned into monsters. Master stopped them, and I escaped. Little darling, don't come here with the director. Think of a way to get reinforcements. We're no match for them at all. Not good, they're coming. I have to escape. Don't come. Please don't come." Wu Miaowan's tone sounded very urgent and panicked. It was not hard to imagine how bad her situation was. Enchanting quickly sent a few messages, but Wu Miaowan did not reply. She did not know if she was dead or alive. What should I do? What should I do now? Enchanting tried her best to use her brain to figure out the situation that Wu Miaowan was talking about. There must be a problem with the information. Of course, under normal circumstances, no one would have thought that the shattered world had taken control of the entire Wutua town. Besides that, she did not know if the monsters that Wu Miaowan mentioned were the same as the Earth Ripper and Earth Tremor that they had encountered on the way. If that was the case, it would be too scary. Enchanting had never felt so hopeless before, but everything was out of her control. She had no idea what to do. Just one Earth Tremor or Earth Ripper was enough to send her and Guang into a frenzy. Even now, the commotion coming from the mountainside had not calmed down. It even felt like the ground was shaking. If everyone in Wutua town was that scary, what should they do? Just the two of them, Guang and herself, should they go and rescue them? Should they think of a way to get reinforcements? Would the reinforcements be of any use? Would they make it in time? Besides, even if they managed to get reinforcements, how were they going to get there? Enchanting was at a loss. She turned to look at the cup on the equipment cabinet. Guang's Batman cup cover was a little old, making the cup look even more ordinary. She really did not understand what Guang's intentions were. Her subconscious told her that Guang would not do something meaningless. Was he just trying to get the two of them to take refuge here? Impossible. If he really wanted to take refuge, he might as well have the two of them turn around and run. Perhaps it would be more practical to go back to the town. There was no reason for him to deliberately hand this cup to her and specifically tell her to put it on the cabinet. He must have his intentions, and it must be related to how to enter the other Wutua town. But I don't understand at all. Guang, where are you now? What should we do? At this time, not to mention Enchanting, even Lori was not much better. I say, Nicosi, this is your last chance. If you mess things up, I promise you that you will die a very rhythmic death. A fine thread that was invisible to the naked eye was spreading out from the bottom of the Holy Grail, extending to the communication base equipment under the Grail. Lioli's threat was transmitted through this thread, ringing in the ears of Nikoxi, who had completely fused with the equipment. Goddess, please don't interfere with my scientific research. What I want to do is use this communication base to crack the characteristics between two planes. Do you think it's as simple as 1 + 1 = 2? Please wait a moment, thank you. Soon. I am supervising you. Do you understand, this is a supervisor? Lori shouted fiercely. Nicosi had more or less understood the nature of this goddess. She thought indignantly, if it wasn't for the fact that she wanted a body that could be sensed, why would she work so hard for you? This kind of thing, besides me, who else can do it? Sister Lori, don't disturb her. I think she's working quite hard. She has to work hard and use her brain. It's not easy. Dear Minguo was kind and spoke up for Nicosie at the right time. Nicosie was very moved. There were still people who knew what was good for them. Anyway, if she fails, she's finished, and we're finished. We're all finished. Before we're finished, we'll torture her. The touched feeling in Nicosie's heart instantly vanished. Lori and dear Minguo's benevolence did not treat everyone equally. They were only a little patient when facing Qinguang. As for Nicosie, although she had the precious mechanical heart, she had not shown enough value so far, unless she could turn this disaster into a blessing. At this time, in the communication base equipment that no one could see, the processor that was the core of the system flashed with light from time to time. This light shone on Nicosie's faintly discernible face. Chapter 791. At the same time, not only did Nicosia, who was in her spirit form, fuse with the processor, her entire soul turned into the form of a mechanical heart, extending along the integrated circuit board of the base station equipment. It was as if countless tentacles had formed, fusing the entire base station into her mechanical heart. After the complete fusion, she discovered the strangeness of the base station equipment. Its weight was sometimes light and sometimes heavy, and the outline of its internal components was sometimes clear, sometimes blurry, and sometimes completely nothingness, as if it did not exist in this world. It looked like a 3D projection, but sometimes it actually existed. This thing could travel between the two worlds. When it entered the other Utopia town, its form in this world was close to nothingness, and when it returned to the real world, it became nothingness in the other Utopia town. Nicosia was brought along by the base station equipment, swinging left and right like a pendulum at the border of the two worlds. She had never experienced such a feeling before. It was so wonderful that she was simply intoxicated, and her mind was in a trance. Liuli's threat was still somewhat effective. At least it made her wake up, and she knew that she could not delay any longer. She had to quickly use her experience of traveling between the two worlds with the base station equipment to find a way to further stimulate the connection between the two worlds. She focused her mind, and in her mind, she was performing extremely profound calculations. However, the rules of the world were so complicated that it was impossible for an existence like her, who was only a mortal not long ago, to guess them. Even if she had the intelligence of a Frankenstein, without enough accumulated knowledge, it was impossible for her to see through the mysteries. It was just like when people in ancient times got hold of a mobile phone, and you asked them to understand the principles behind the phone's photography. This was completely beyond the scope of her knowledge. Just as she was about to give up, she suddenly felt a signal, as if it came from another world. In that instant, the communication base station rapidly blurred until it almost completely disappeared from this world, and its weight became 1/1000th of its actual existence. Then, it quickly returned to normal, and its weight was close to the state when it completely existed, with only 1/1000th of its original weight. Why was that? After a brief moment of confusion, Xian Qin happened to press the play button on WeChat and listen to the distress message that Wu Miaowan had just sent over with Lu Fei. So that was it. The communication base station first became blurry, as it had gone to another world to receive the signal. Then, it returned to the real world and transported the phone signal back. The process sounded complicated, but it actually happened in less than a millisecond. If Nicosia had not transformed herself into a mechanical heart and completely fused with the base station equipment, she would not have been able to notice this instantaneous change. Being brought back and forth between the two realms, Nicole was like a researcher conducting a field trip, gaining a more quantitative understanding of the characteristics of the two realms. She also noticed that when Qinguang's mobile phone needed to send a message, or when the other side's mobile phone needed to send a message, the base station would complete the task of transmitting the signal, and would travel between the two worlds more thoroughly. Many of the concepts that had been foggy in his mind when he was calculating and reasoning just now became clear little by little. She didn't dare to be negligent. She firmly grasped the fleeting inspiration in that instant and started to deduce in her heart. If she was still a mortal, her brain would not have been able to withstand such intense calculations and reasoning. But fortunately, she was already dead and had turned into a spirit body in the Holy Grail. At this moment, she had evolved into a mechanical heart and had fused with the processor core of the base station instrument. She could even use this processor to assist in calculations. At this moment, Nicole was like a living supercomputer. People in the Jianghu called her Mighty Taihu Light. She finally found the right direction to decipher the channel that had been stagnant, and she took the first solid step. This was how scientific research was. The most difficult thing was to take the right first step. Once the direction was found, the next step was to advance step by step. About 30 seconds later, Enchanting began to speak again. She sent several voice messages in succession. This was incredible. The base station equipment continued to travel between the two realms at a crazy speed. While Nicole screamed, her soul followed the base station equipment and traveled between the two realms many times in an extremely short period of time. Her head was dizzy from the shaking. It was really painful and happy at the same time. But she didn't come up empty-handed. Instead, she made a new discovery. The more complex the voice and content that Enchanting sent, the louder her voice was, the closer the base station equipment was to its limit when it traveled back and forth. Especially the last voice message, in which Enchanting screamed at the top of her lungs into the phone. When this signal was first transmitted, the base station equipment that had fused with the mechanical heart was almost exactly the same as the absolute weight of the real world. When the signal needed to be transferred to the other Utopia town, the weight of the equipment in the real world was even reduced to only a millionth of the absolute weight. Twice, Nicole almost touched the absolute boundary between the two worlds, infinitely close to the absolute existence of the real world and the absolute nothingness. These two extreme experiences immediately made many of the unclear concepts in her mind become much clearer. More importantly, she found a new way of thinking. Being able to use a microwave did not mean that one had to be able to emit microwaves. One just had to figure out how to connect the power and how to press the switch. Obviously, this communication base station would be affected by the strength of the cell phone's signal. The stronger the signal needed to be transmitted, the deeper the base station equipment needed to travel between the two worlds. This meant that when the signal strength exceeded a certain limit, it was possible for the base station equipment to completely appear on the other side. Of course, it might still come back, because this base station equipment was affected by both the Holy Grail and the Punishment Realm. It had the attributes of both worlds. At this moment, this set of equipment did not belong to the real world, nor did it belong to the Punishment Realm. Just like the moving electrons in the law of uncertainty, it could not exist stably in any world for a long time. Goddess. I have an idea. What? What idea do you have? Hurry up and tell me. Lioli was overjoyed, and even her tone became amiable. As expected of the machinery hive mind. You didn't waste your efforts in nurturing this empress. Dear Cry's ridicule came faintly from the horizon. Sister Lioli, why can't I tell that you've nurtured Nicole? Shut up. Dear Cry. Don't make things difficult for me, thank you. Lioli shouted at Dear Cry, feeling wronged. Then, she switched to her amiable and approachable look. Nicole, hurry up and tell me. I'm counting on you. Don't worry, this emperor is one of the 10 great emperors of the endless realm of the gods. This emperor has always been a man of his word. As long as you can give this emperor what I want and help Qinguang avert danger, this emperor will definitely give you what you want. In the future, even if I confer you the title of godly venerable and grant you eternal life, it will not be a problem. Nicole had originally planned to ask for a sky-high price, but in the end, Lioli directly raised the price to the sky. Her mind was buzzing with the names Lioli mentioned. Endless realm of the gods. 10 great emperors. Godly venerable. Eternal life. With all of these, what was a mere physical body worth mentioning? Goddess, I just discovered that when Qinguang's phone sends a message to the woman named Wu Miaowan who is in another world through WeChat, this base station equipment will shuttle between the two worlds and be used to transport the message. And then? Lioli and Deercry asked at the same time. The greater the amount of information sent by the phone, the deeper the base station will go into the other world. Right now, it's just a voice message, and it's already enough to cause a strong fluctuation. In this subordinate's opinion, if a more concentrated, longer, and larger signal can be sent over, it's very likely to completely activate the connection between the two worlds. And at that time, as long as I use the mechanical heart to control this base station equipment and explode it, I have at least a 99% chance of opening up the passage in one go. Lioli pondered for a moment. But this also means that there's only one chance of success, right? After all, it's gone if it explodes. Nicole nodded. Yes, there's only one chance. It can only succeed, and not fail. Are you going to do it or not? Sister Lioli? Deercry hesitated slightly. Lioli gritted her teeth and said resolutely, there's no choice. Let's do it. Qinguang is being chased around by the Earth Chaos Dominator, and if we don't do it once, we're all finished. At this time, Qinguang was running quite boldly and uninhibited in the wild. He couldn't leave the vicinity of Utopia, but the bright red ball behind him was chasing him relentlessly. With no other choice, he could only run wildly around Utopia. Fortunately, although the Earth Chaos Dominator could fly, its speed was not terrifying. Although it was only a ball with a diameter of less than a meter, its mass was astonishing. Just now, when it accidentally hit a cement pole on the side of the road, the huge pole was directly blown away, but the Earth Chaos Dominator's flight path did not change at all. At this time, Qinguang had 4 kinds of abilities. He combined the explosive power of the Ripper and the control of the Paragon into one. First, he made himself as light as a swallow, reducing the weight on his body. Then, he used the explosive power of the Ripper to take a step forward, and like a bolt of lightning, he shot hundreds of meters forward. If it weren't for the terrible suction force coming from behind him from time to time, pulling him back, he would have left the Earth Chaos Dominator in the dust. Since Lioli said he was no match for it, Qinguang did not want to bite the bullet and find out what it was capable of. For now, it seemed that the devouring ability of the Earth Chaos Dominator could not be avoided. What was even more annoying was that it seemed that as time went on, the strength of the Earth Chaos Dominator's devouring ability seemed to increase. At first, he could still run forward against the suction force, then he staggered, and then he staggered. Recently, he had begun to be pulled back. If this continued, sooner or later, he would be sucked into the Earth Chaos Dominator's body and eaten. Qinguang. How's the situation? Lioli's sympathy came again. Qinguang, who was running away in panic, expressed that there was true love in the world. Chapter 792. My emotions are very stable, but it's a little unsightly to run around naked. The wind is blowing at my crotch. Oh, no, I'm not wearing pants now. Anyway, it's cold. Very good. Persevere. Thank you for your encouragement, but I estimate that I can only hold on for another hour at most. Please hurry up. An hour? Forget it, let's not talk about this. Damn. Then what should we talk about? Be more serious. Do you have ready-made videos on your phone? I want to use the ones with higher resolution and longer duration. F*CK. You heartless cheat, what time is this? Do you still want to watch TV to pass the time? Master Guang did not want to cry anymore. What could he say to such a cheat? There was no one else in the world who could be so cold-blooded and heartless. Who said I want to pass the time? It's very useful. Don't talk nonsense, do you? Yes. Which tray do you want to put it on? Why can't I find it after looking for a long time? It has to be high definition. It has to be at least 1080p, and the duration can't be less than half an hour. I used the system clone. Open system number 2 and open the storage directory. There's a folder called Third Year Final Exam Review Materials. Open it, and there are 4 or 5 folders inside. One of them is called Situation and Policy Review Materials. Open the Marxist Philosophy Study Materials inside, and then open the Dialectics and Criticism inside. Liuli was about to collapse. How deep did you hide it? Soon. After you open the Dialectics and Criticism folder, there are about 17 or 18 video files inside. I can't remember the rest, but there's one called Profound Criticism of Capitalism's Backwardness and Corruption, after class. That's it. After waiting for more than 10 seconds, Liuli's roar was heard. Are you crazy? Isn't this Bo Duo-e? Master Guang was shocked. F***ck, you know Sister Bo too. Sister Bo is mighty. She's famous in the divine realm. Shut up. Idiot. What the F***ck? Do you have to hide it so deeply? You don't understand. This is my collection. Every time I change my phone, I have to save it. It contains my youth memories. This way, my dad won't find out. A god like you won't understand the joys of mortals. I can't be bothered with you. Hang in there. Liuli scolded him again, and then there was no sound. Chen Guang really couldn't figure out what Liuli wanted this small piece of land for. Forget it, I don't have the right to be distracted right now. Keep running. Wu Miaowan arched her body as she swiftly traversed through the forest. She had grown up in the Thousand-Flower Valley, so she was very experienced in traversing through the forest. Although the mud men with strange yellow light and spiderweb-like cracks on their faces were still chasing after Wu Miaowan, they were not slow at all. However, if Wu Miaowan wanted to escape, she could still widen the distance between them. However, it was not a solution to keep running like this. Wu Miaowan tried to run out of Wu Tua town, but she realized that she had lost her sense of direction. No matter how she ran, it was as if she was running on the same spot, circling around Wu Tua town. Wu Miaowan was 100% sure that she was aiming straight ahead, and she was running in a straight line. However, as she ran, she kept returning to familiar places. There was no point in running for her life. It was as if she was possessed. Wu Miaowan had also returned to the vicinity of Wu Tua town, and she realized that the people in the town had all turned into monsters. Smelling her alien scent, these humanoid monsters instantly went berserk and chased after her like zombies. She had nowhere to go, and she could only keep running. Fortunately, although these things possessed extraordinary athletic abilities after their mutation, they were still a little lacking compared to her, who was at the peak of bone force. Their intelligence had also deteriorated significantly, and she was gradually left behind. When she finally had some free time, Wu Miaowan perched on a towering tree. After running continuously for more than an hour, even she was exhausted. Wu Miaowan leaned against the tree trunk, wiped the muddy sweat off her face, and took out her phone. What happened today was too unbelievable. Wu Miaowan had countless question marks in her mind, and she wanted to talk to Enchanting. Enchanting would not joke at a time like this. Since she said she was in Wu Tua town, then she must be there. But why couldn't they see each other when they were in the parking lot? Wu Miaowan had been puzzled before, but now she vaguely understood. We seemed to be in the same place, but it was actually my illusion, or maybe it was her illusion. What I'm seeing isn't real at all. I could also be dreaming, or possessed. My dream is so real, even Enchanting's WeChat message is so vivid. Forget it, so what if it's a dream? It's not bad to chat with my little darling in a dream. Wu Miaowan opened WeChat and was about to send a voice message when she saw that Enchanting had sent her a long voice message. She clicked it out of habit, but it didn't have any substantive or constructive opinions. Enchanting first comforted her, then told her not to be nervous and to survive. She then said that Chen Guang knew about their current situation and was thinking of a solution. Of course, Enchanting became anxious when she didn't get a reply, and the last sentence was shouted at the top of her lungs. If you asked Wu Miaowan what Enchanting said, it could be summed up in one sentence: persevere, persevere is victory. Xiao Miaowan, don't die. Tell Master and the others that you must think of a way to protect yourself. That's all. Although Enchanting's words were of no help, hearing a familiar voice at this time was also a happy thing for Wu Miaowan. Forget it, I'll leave her some last words. She sent me another video file? What could it be? A guide to surviving a supernatural incident? That's very possible. But the name of the file is so strange. A profound criticism of capitalism? What is capitalism? Is it a person? Why is she criticizing him? How is he corrupt? Also, why is she criticizing him after school? Is this person a student? Forget it, I'll just keep it for now and take a look at it later. Maybe it really is useful? At this moment, in the communication base of Utopia Town, Azure was secretly controlling Chen Guang's phone to send out the video. She did not care about this matter anymore and focused all her attention on Nixie and her mechanical heart. The voice messages from before were all short and fast signals. The base station equipment could store all the voices that Enchanting sent out and then release them in another utopia. But this time, they were going to transmit an entire video, and the size of the file package was about 2.7 gigabytes. The design of the base station equipment did not have the capacity to store this amount of data. According to the general principle of data transmission, when transmitting data, the phone would first split the 2.7 gigabyte file into countless small files, and transmit the data in segments one by one. Therefore, from the moment the video was sent out, the communication base station began to travel between the two worlds. It appeared in the modern world in an instant, and then in the real world of punishment in an instant. Could she have fainted from the shaking? Lu Minghua said worriedly. I won't. Liuli said with certainty. Sister Liuli, how did you know? I guessed it. Chen Guang was still frantically fleeing. Not too long ago, he had accidentally tripped and slipped on the ground, giving the Earth Primal Chaos the opportunity to unleash its black hole-like ability. His entire body was dragged a few hundred meters back and was pulled 10 meters away from the Earth Primal Chaos. In that short moment, he knew how terrifying the Earth Chaotic was. The 4 Earth Elemental Esper abilities in his body suddenly went out of control, and his body disintegrated in an instant, turning into countless fragments and flying uncontrollably towards the Earth Chaotic. If not for his strong willpower and the fact that the black hole ability of the Earth Chaos had reached the end of its flight, he would have turned into a speck of dust and been devoured by the Earth Chaos. If not for his strong willpower and the fact that the black hole ability of the Earth Chaos had reached its limit, he would have been devoured by the Earth Chaos. This feeling was really like a year. Not long ago, he told Azure that he could last for an hour, but now it seemed that he was too optimistic. Half an hour passed, but in his heart, it felt like half a century had passed. During this period, he disintegrated into particles several times because he was too close to the Earth Chaotic, and he was getting closer and closer to being devoured. Unlike the previous few Earth Chaotic, the Earth Chaotic seemed to have a certain degree of rejection in the real world. But as time passed, the degree of its integration with the world gradually increased, so the abilities it displayed were also getting stronger. Liuli, is it enough? I may not be able to hold on any longer. This thing is getting stronger and stronger. Chen Guang roared loudly in his heart again. Finally, Liuli's heavenly voice came from the other side, hurry back. It's best if you appear outside this communication base at 331 seconds and 167 milliseconds. It can't be too early or too late. Chen Guang was overjoyed, even his tired body felt energetic again. He made a detour and planned to return to the mountain where the base station was. In his heart, he muttered to Liuli, must it be so accurate? Can't I be a little earlier? No. Then that's too ridiculous. How can it be accurate down to the millisecond? Aren't you making things difficult for me? No, you have to believe in yourself. You are my savior, the master of the heavenly Holy Grail. As long as you wholeheartedly want to do something, there is nothing in this world, this universe, this plane that is impossible for you. Chen Guang felt that there was a lot of meaning in Liuli's words, but at this moment, he was not in the mood to think about the philosophical meaning in Liuli's words. The damn attraction force behind him was coming again. Liuli was not joking with Chen Guang. Just now, Nicosia finally gave her an accurate answer. In the process of transmitting this video, because the data was divided into countless consecutive segments, the equipment of the base station did indeed go back and forth between the two worlds in the form of oscillations. Apart from that, the magnitude of each oscillation was a little stronger than the previous one, and closer to the limit. Although Nicosia was also not sure if she could really reach or surpass the critical point that she expected if she continued to strengthen it, at this moment, everyone had no other choice. They could only gamble on the fact that when the video data was transmitted to the last segment, the equipment of the base station's oscillation would exceed the critical point. In other words, it would explode at this moment, and they would just be able to open up the channel. The time that Liuli gave to Chen Guang was also the last moment that was calculated according to the current data transmission speed. As Chen Guang ran, he counted down the time in his heart. After a dozen or so seconds, he gave up struggling. This is bullsh*t. I'm not a machine. Not to mention accurate control down to the millisecond, even controlling it down to the minute is ridiculous. Counting with his fingers, 331 seconds was equivalent to more than 5 minutes. At this moment, he was about a few kilometers away from the mountain where the base station was located. His current running speed was. Thank you. I've given up struggling. I can't calculate it. Liuli, I can tell you very seriously that it's impossible for me to do what you said. Alright. I'll give you a road map. If you run along this route, you'll be able to break free from the chaotic being's devouring ability and arrive at the place on time. As Liuli spoke, Chen Guang forcefully stuffed a spiral-shaped road map into her mind. Amazing. How did you calculate it? The machinery hive mind calculated it for you. She also took into account the increase in the chaotic being's innate ability. She's even more amazing than the astronomers in your world. Help me say thank you to her. After replying, he began to run along the spiral route. Nicosia Tepester's calculations had clearly taken into account all factors. 5 minutes later, Chen Guang appeared on time at a position about 70 to 80 meters below the base station's signal tower. Looking over, his eyes flickered. He vaguely felt that the house under the tower was a little strange. It looked blurry and hazy, and at a certain moment, it seemed to become transparent. However, when he rubbed his eyes and looked again, there was no such phenomenon, making him think that it was an illusion. Stop daydreaming. Hurry up and run over. Straight. Now. Liuli began to urge him. At this time, Xian Qin and Lu Fei, who were hiding in the base station, also vaguely sensed the anomaly. Miss Xian, do you feel that the floor is shaking? I feel it a little. It's getting stronger and stronger. It's like the phone is on vibration. The two of them were chatting when suddenly, the metal box in front of them containing the base station equipment shone brightly, dazzlingly bright. The two of them covered their eyes in unison. Before they could even cry out in alarm, the brilliance suddenly blossomed crazily, engulfing every inch of space in the room like a tide. Even if the two of them closed their eyes, all they could see was a vast expanse of whiteness. Chen Guang, who was running over, was also dazzled by the dazzling light and couldn't see the road ahead. However, Liuli was yelling in his heart, "Don't care about anything and just run straight ahead. I believe you. Don't screw me over." When did I screw you over? You screw me over every day. At the same time, Nicosia, who had transformed into the machinery hive mind, shouted, "Goddess! Now's the time." As soon as she said that, Sister Nippo's short film criticizing capitalism finally reached the last bit of data. It was time to explode. The Tempest family had extremely rich explosive experience, so it was easy and pleasant for them to blow up a set of electronic equipment. Overload, heat, detonation, and the rules she had comprehended from figuring out the characteristics of the two worlds destroyed the internal balance of the base station equipment. Then, with a loud bang, it exploded. However, this so-called explosion was different from an ordinary explosion. Lu Fei and Enchanting did not hear any sound. They only felt their bodies warm, as if they had been soaked in a bathtub. Guang did not know what was going on in front of him either, so he just ran with his head down. 32 seconds later, his body trembled. When he opened his eyes, he found himself swaying in the void as if he had lost gravity. This scene was so familiar. That's right, it was the space-time tunnel that he had passed through countless times. He turned his head to look to his side and saw that Enchanting and Lu Fei were unconscious beside him. He hurriedly pulled at the void twice and reached out to grab their hands to prevent them from floating away. As for the fact that only their bodies had come over, but their clothes and pants had not, he did not need to pay attention to them. Lioli? What's going on now? Where's the cup? Why don't I see the cup? Guang asked in his heart. Are you stupid? Of course the cup is outside. It's okay, you've already entered the punishment realm. Now that the superpowers of the four elemental creatures are still in your body, you can pretty much pass through the punishment realm lying down. I'm relieved to hear you say that. Wait. Suddenly, Lioli cried out in surprise. Guang's heart suddenly hung in the air. What's wrong? Hurry up and swim forward. The Earth chaotic being has also rushed into the tunnel with you. Guang looked back and saw that the bright red light was closing in on them from afar. F***CK. How the F***CK is that possible? Guang hurriedly grabbed Enchanting and Lu Fei's waists with one hand and stomped hard on the bottom of the space-time tunnel with the tip of his foot. His little butt twisted as he dashed forward. Chapter 793. Compared to the space-time tunnel in the past, this one seemed to be longer and more substantial. The instant he stepped on the ground, the explosive force was enough to provide a strong recoil. Guang now had an astonishing explosive force. Coupled with the fact that there was no gravity in the tunnel, he dragged Enchanting and Lu Fei forward at an extremely fast speed, like a cannonball. He thought that escaping into the space-time tunnel would be safe, but he did not expect the Earth chaotic ones to follow him in. The fear in his heart was indescribable. Outside the space-time tunnel, the equipment room of the base station was still standing on the hilltop, as if it was not affected by the explosion. The heavenly Holy Grail was still quietly placed on the equipment cabinet. The old Batman mug on top of the mug exuded a sense of mysterious nobility under the afternoon sun. In the cabinet under the heavenly Holy Grail, the equipment of the base station that should have exploded on the spot was still sitting there quietly. The indicator light was flickering, as if nothing had happened. But the equipment no longer had the blurred and clear feeling it had before. It had become ordinary and unremarkable. After Guang entered the punishment realm, the equipment that was detonated by the mechanical hive mind did not disappear. Instead, it returned to its previous ordinary existence. Nicosia's soul had now returned to the heavenly Holy Grail. While the large amount of data calculations and deductions had allowed her to gain a lot, it had also greatly consumed her energy. She did not even have a body now. After her energy was consumed, the only way to recover was to sleep her soul. As for when she would wake up, who cared? She was not needed anymore. Inside the cup, the two goddesses were discussing national affairs. Sister Lioli, what should we do now? Lioli, you're asking me what to do. Who should I ask? Dear Cry, we've miscalculated. Lioli, a little. Sigh. Sigh. The two celestial emperors thought that by having Nicosia open the passage ahead of time and having Guang bring the first four abilities of the Earth family bucket into the punishment realm, his mission in the punishment realm would be a piece of cake. By the time he settled everything in the punishment realm, the fusion between the real world and the real world would naturally fade, and the Earth chaos would naturally dissipate. Then, Qin Guang would be able to pass the punishment realm safely. However, God's plan was not as good as God's plan. Or perhaps it should be said that the punishment of fate was too strong. The passageway was only opened for a few tenths of a second. Other than Lu Fei, Enchanting, and Qin Guang, the earth chaos one suddenly sped up and followed them in. The two gods were feeling rather melancholic. Lu Ming asked again, "Sister Lu Li, tell me, if Qin Guang really died, what should we do? Am I really going to be trapped in this holy grail forever?" Azure shook her head. Not necessarily. Lu Mingguo was overjoyed. "Sister Lu Li, you mean we can think of a way out?" Sigh. You should have said so earlier. You scared me to death. You don't know how much I regret following his god's wrath into this cup. Shaking her head, Lioli continued, "I didn't say that we can leave by ourselves. It's just that the Sky Saint Grail has never acknowledged an owner ever since it was born. I've always said that Qin Guang is a lab rat, but isn't I a lab rat as well? So, we can't rule out the possibility that after he dies, the entire Holy Grail will be destroyed, and you and I will be annihilated together." Lu Ming stared. "So this doesn't count as being imprisoned forever?" Azure shrugged. "It doesn't count. Lu Ming, I think it's better to be imprisoned. At least we're still alive, there's still hope. I really don't know what's going on in your mind. You don't want eternal life and accompany him in this madness? What are you after?" Azure turned around and looked at Lu Ming. "I at least have my own purpose. You, who rushed here to die, don't have the right to say such words." Lu Ming was stunned. After a long while, he said faintly, "It seems quite boring to live alone in the divine realm for so long. I don't even know what I want. If I die, then I die. Even if life can be eternal, if I can't see the possibility of becoming a higher form of existence, it seems that it can also be understood as an eternal cage." Azure did not answer Lu Ming's words. No one knew what she was thinking, but it was clear that she had seen more of the divine realm than Lu Ming, and she had thought more deeply. But there were some truths that she did not want Lu Ming to know. If Qin Guang really died today, then he died under the control of the Bell of Fate. This meant that no one could escape the control of fate, even gods. This was an incomparably despairing realization. If that was the case, then so be it. Coming from eternity did not necessarily mean returning to eternity. Existence was eternity, annihilation was also eternity. Things had developed to this point, and everything was beyond Azure's control. The phrase, "pray for more blessings," was not only given by Azure to Qin Guang, but also to herself. In the space-time tunnel, Qin Guang was still moving forward quickly with Enchanting and Lu Fei. He had never felt that the space-time tunnel was so long. He did not know if it was because he wanted to escape as soon as possible, or because the world in the cup that they were going to face this time was too special. It was really that long. He looked back from time to time, and the red light was still following behind like a vengeful spirit. He seemed to hear the earth chaos being laughing at him proudly. "What are you looking at? If you look again, I'll eat you." What's going on? Where is this?" Suddenly, Enchanting, who was under his armpit, said faintly. Qin Guang looked down, only to see that she was slowly opening her eyes, and at the same time rubbing her temples with her hands, looking a little painful. "It's nothing, take a nap. When you wake up, we'll be in another Wutua town." What a joke. What time is this? How can I fall asleep? And, what are these colorful lights? What tunnel is this? Since she had seen everything, Qin Guang also knew that he could not hide it, so he simply said, "If I told you that this is a space-time tunnel, would you believe me?" "I believe you, but what is a space-time tunnel?" Enchanting rubbed her eyes, and turned her head to look around. "See, you won't understand even if I tell you, so don't ask, it's meaningless." Unexpectedly, Enchanting was still restless, and continued to scream, "Ah! Why is Lu Fei not wearing clothes? You old pervert, smelly director, can you take a break for a while? What time is this? Why are you still so horny? Chen Guang was instantly angry. Look at me now. Do I look like I'm playing? Do I look very calm? Horny? I can joke with you normally, but can you figure out what kind of situation this is? You're asking me why Lu Fei is not wearing clothes? I want to know, but it's not important at all, okay? What's important is that I'm running for my life. Running for my life. Maybe all of us will die in the next moment. I'm going to die, you're going to die, and Lu Fei is going to die. If we die, Wu Miaowan, your masters, Shui Lin, and everyone in the task force will die. Can you be a little more obedient? Xin Qin was stunned when she was suddenly scolded by him, but she quickly reacted. She stole a glance at Chen Guang's anxious expression and completely calmed down, coming to a realization. Sorry. I didn't mean it. It's okay, don't I know you? When we get back, you can mess with me all you want, scold me or hit me, that's not a problem. As for now, you're not allowed to say anything, and you're not allowed to question anything I do, understand? First, we have to survive. Oh yes, I forgot to remind you, it's not only Lu Fei who has no clothes to wear, you and I are the same. But this is not because I did anything to you. My clothes were torn during the battle with the Earth family bucket, and I don't know what happened to your clothes. Alright, are you satisfied with this answer? No. It's nothing, you don't have to explain on purpose. Chen Guang was too lazy to complain about Xin Qin's hypocrisy. Suddenly, as he was running diagonally forward, he felt a pulling force from behind, and his whole body leaned back. The unlucky Earth Chaos being had activated its black hole ability again, and a strong suction force appeared out of thin air, almost breaking his waist. Chen Guang knew that this was bad. He was now very close to the Earth Chaos being, and he was also in this narrow passage. If he was pulled back like this, he would definitely die. What's the situation? Xin Qin saw that Chen Guang's expression was not right and screamed. There's a monster chasing us from behind. This monster can exert a gravitational force on Earth elemental substances. After I fought with the Earth elemental creature, my body was stained with Earth elemental properties, and I'm being pulled back by it. If I'm pulled back, I'm dead, and I'll be eaten by it. Chen Guang spread his legs and stepped on the sides of the space-time tunnel, trying his best to support himself as he explained to Xin Qin. I don't feel any force pulling me. Is it because I don't have any Earth elemental properties in my body? Chen Guang did not answer her. He bent his toes and tried to clasp the side of the tunnel, but to no avail. The suction force from the direction of the Earth Chaos being was getting stronger, to the point that his toes scratched the colorful side wall, but he was still dragged back uncontrollably. Damn, this guy is getting more and more ferocious. I'm done for. Chen Guang turned his head to look at both sides, and he broke out in cold sweat. God knows what material the side wall of the space-time tunnel was made of. It was soft, but it took a lot of effort for his toes to dig in a little. These were the toes of the wind god's legs. It was not scientific to say that it was hard. Since it was a space-time tunnel, it should be in a non-material form, the legendary turbulence of time and space. In a sense, the old man was probably the first person in history to be able to dig 10 scratches in the turbulence of time and space with his toes. I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Seeing that the suction force behind him was irresistible, Chen Guang did not think too much. He loosened his waist and threw Xin Qin and Lu Fei out of the tunnel. Lu Fei hit the side wall and slowly woke up. She floated in the air and rubbed her eyes, murmuring, "Where is this? What's going on?" Xin Qin was burning with anxiety. She struggled to stand and turned around to pull Chen Guang's hand, trying to pull him forward. But it was to no avail. There was no friction between her feet and the ground. After all, there was no gravity here. She was floating in the void and had nowhere to start. Not only did she fail to pull Chen Guang, but she was also easily pulled back with him. Although she was a bone-strength martial artist and was considered powerful among ordinary people, at this moment, she had a feeling that she could not find a foothold even though she had all her strength. At this time, inside the heavenly Holy Grail, Lioli and Dear Cry were also aware of what happened in the space-time tunnel. Lioli rubbed her head in pain. It's over. It's all over now. Dear Cry's face was also gloomy. That's right. Although his 2 feet can support him on the side wall of the tunnel, it's useless. This soft turbulence wall can only give him a little resistance. It's not enough for him to withstand the gravitational force of the chaotic being. On the other side, Enchanting was screaming anxiously, but she could not exert any force on her feet. What should I do? What should I do now? Director, tell me what to do. Lu Fei gradually woke up, but saw Enchanting's tearful and anxious look. Miss Chen Guang, what's going on? Obviously, Lu Fei did not feel any gravitational force from the chaotic being. Enchanting turned her head abruptly. There's no time to explain, I'll tell you later. Hurry up and pull Guang with me. Otherwise, he's going to die. Lu Fei's mind was muddled, but she still turned around and grabbed Guang's other hand, imitating Enchanting, trying to pull Guang forward. But it was useless. Although she was taller than Enchanting, she still could not exert any force at the bottom of the tunnel. 2 fair, graceful, and tender bodies with no excess fat, each with their own unique characteristics. With their naked bodies in front of him, they were desperately grabbing his hand. From time to time, he would touch some parts that were not suitable for children. In a sense, this was a scene of happiness that could move him to tears. If only I wasn't going to die now, how great would it be? Forget it, this is it, I've accepted my fate. Guang suddenly shook his hands, broke free from Enchanting's and Lu Fei's hands, and pulled them back. He smiled bitterly. Forget it, I'm dead for sure. You guys should leave. Although I don't know if you guys can survive if I die here, you don't have to follow me to face the Earth Chaos being. Maybe you guys won't die, based on my understanding of the heavenly Holy Grail. After I die, you guys will probably appear in a certain place in reality, or a certain period in your previous life. Maybe you guys will wake up and think that you had a blurry dream, you won't remember me, and you won't remember these things. After owning the heavenly Holy Grail for so long, Guang had a certain understanding of the Grail's ability, so what he said was not impossible. Since the heavenly Holy Grail could erase Lu Fei's father's memory, it could also erase everyone's memory, and could even make the entire world go back to a certain period, but his existence would be erased, as if he had never been here. Maybe there was another Guang, who was still happily studying in school, but he would not encounter the heavenly Holy Grail, and he would never have these changes. Instead, he would gradually lose everything in his ordinary life, and become an ordinary person, living an ordinary life. But this has nothing to do with me, I have lost this part of my memory, and even now I am erased. If time goes back to the beginning, will I still be me? Chapter 794. Impossible. In your dreams. Enchanting's voice became sharp again. She screamed and rushed to grab Guang's right hand. She was quite stubborn. Lu Fei first looked at his naked body before he turned to look at Guang and Enchanting, who were frantically pulling on him. He was at a loss. Suddenly waking up from a drowsy and ignorant state and having to face this kind of strange and terrifying thing, anyone would be at a loss as to what to do. She shook her head, desperately trying to figure out what was going on. She vaguely remembered that Enchanting had said that we were going to another world that was exactly the same as Wutua town to save someone. It was Guang's task. Only after completing the task could everyone leave safely. In that case, this strange passage should be the path to another world. Earlier, Guang was fighting with the tornado-like monster. Then, he told me and Enchanting to run up the mountain, saying that the tunnel would open naturally. So, the scene where Enchanting and I saw the cabinet suddenly glowing should be when the tunnel was opened. Enchanting and I were sucked in by the tunnel, and Guang should have run in at that time. As for why the clothes were gone, it wasn't hard for Lu Fei to guess. People could come in, but the clothes, for some inexplicable reason, stayed in the original world. That wasn't important. Now wasn't the time to care about these trivial things. Now, it seemed that Qinguang didn't defeat the monster. He just delayed the time. When he escaped into the tunnel, the monster followed him. That must be it. I had to say that Lu Fei was a woman with a strong logical ability. She didn't embarrass Lu chemical industry, nor did she waste her position as the heir of Dechuan's Lu family. Although she wasn't talented and couldn't be considered a peerless talent, she had been in the business world for many years. She was also the leader of one of the main branches of Lu chemical industry. Naturally, she had a pair of discerning eyes and a strong logical thinking ability. Although there was a slight error in her deduction, it was not far from the truth. Then, what Qinguang is doing now is that he knows he is going to die, so he deliberately said such words to make Enchanting and me abandon him, right? Lu Fei couldn't help but recall all the bits and pieces of what had happened after she met Qinguang. He used his incredible driving skills to drive that lousy Rena, making it impossible for supercars like them to even eat his dust on Phoenix Spring Mountain. After something happened to Zhongbai, he jumped into the river and saved Zhongbai's life. Later on, under the guise of teaching at Phoenix Spring Mountain, he opened a racing god training class in order to make money. She had sat in his car and swooped down from Mifengquan and experienced his incredible driving skills. She had even used her privilege as a woman to shamelessly sit in his car and return to Gokyo University. Later on, it was the crazy time in Hong Kong with him. As a little fan, she witnessed and participated in the birth of a god with her own eyes. She still couldn't forget the feeling of her heart beating wildly at that time. Although she didn't want to admit it, Lu Fei's indulgence of Qinguang had clearly betrayed her feelings. She had fallen in love with this racing god Qinguang, who was a few years younger than her, but was talented and filial. But now you say you're going to die? You've taken advantage of me so many times, and every time you make me feel like I'm in a dilemma. You appear in my dreams all day long, and I don't even dare to wear underwear to sleep. You've almost become my nightmare. Now you're telling me that you're going to die? Die in front of me? You want me to leave you behind and run for my life alone? You want me to gamble on the slim chance of survival? Don't even think about it. At the same time, Lu Fei also turned her head over and held onto Qinguang's other hand. Let go of me. Qinguang was anxious. But it was useless for him to be anxious. Enchanting shouted with a louder voice than him, when we come together. When we leave together. When we die together. Don't even think about taking advantage of this lady and running away. Don't even think about making me regret and feel guilty for the rest of my life. Is that guy using an iron chain to pull you? I don't believe it. Do you think I don't know? Isn't it just gravity? Isn't it like the magnetic force of a magnet? There must be a limit. Lu Fei also nodded heavily. That's right. You've taken advantage of me so much, and now you want to die irresponsibly? I won't agree. What a coincidence. Sister Lu Fei, how did he take advantage of you? It's my hands, mouth, and all the places on my body that shouldn't be seen by a man, and that shouldn't be touched by a man, were almost touched by this guy. Qinguang coughed twice. Don't say such explicit things in front of a kid. Enchanting knocked his head. Hee, kid? Do you want to be accused of raping a minor? This lady is already an adult. How many times have I told you? Fine, but it can't be called rape, right? At most, it's called accidental injury, okay? Pay. Pharmacy by Lien. The three of them argued for a while, and then the two girls desperately pulled him forward. But after a while, not only were they unable to resist the pulling force behind them, but they were also pushed further back. The two girls were a little desperate. What should they do? If they couldn't find a way to help them, it seemed that the two of them would only be able to quench their thirst, and wouldn't be able to change the current situation of the three of them. Listen to me, I actually have a good idea. Chen Guang suddenly spoke. The two hurriedly looked at him. Quickly say it. Look at my feet. You two are like me, and your legs can probably support both sides, right? Enchanting slapped her forehead. Why didn't I think of that? I was so anxious that I lost my head. She immediately sprang forward and spread her legs. As expected of a bone-strength martial artist, she was very agile. Both her legs firmly stepped on the wall, and then she bent her body into a complete C shape. Both of her hands reached out to grab Chen Guang's hand, which was exactly the position she had done when she was practicing before, but not as wide as a real one. Actually, this way, she could really borrow some strength from both sides and hold Chen Guang's hand. Lu Fei was anxious. She couldn't bend her waist like Enchanting, so how could she hold his hand? At that moment, she wanted to run behind Chen Guang, intending to support his butt from below. But Chen Guang quickly dissuaded her. Don't go behind me. If the earth chaotic being comes, I can still block it from behind. If you are behind me, I can't do anything if it wants to hurt you. Chen Guang's tone was firm, and Lu Fei also believed him. Then what should I do? Chen Guang said with a straight face, just learn this position, and then grab Enchanting's waist with both hands, and try to pull her up. That'll be enough. Lu Fei nodded in agreement. Okay. She immediately spread her legs and supported herself on the wall of the space-time tunnel. The three of them formed an extremely mysterious 3-in-1 position. Enchanting and Lu Fei were above Chen Guang. Enchanting bent her waist and held Chen Guang's hands, while Lu Fei straightened her body, slightly bent over, and tightly held Enchanting's waist with both hands, pulling her up. The two women spread their legs at the same time, forming two inverted V-shaped supports for Chen Guang. A total of 6 feet were on the wall, including his own legs, so there were a total of 6 resistance fulcrums on the wall. This resistance had little to do with the degree of strength. The friction resistance provided by the soft wall was almost constant. When the force of each fulcrum was similar, the force that prevented Chen Guang from sliding down increased by 3 times. The effect was indeed outstanding. Although he was still sliding down, his speed was much slower. Chief! Where are you looking? At this moment, Enchanting suddenly realized that a certain fellow was rigidly raising his head and looking straight ahead. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. The focus of this guy's gaze was on the area between her legs, which was facing his head. What's more, he looked at her, and then looked at Lu Fei, who was next to her, as if he was very busy. You still have the mood to be a peeping Tom at a time like this. It's so embarrassing for me to open my legs like this. Bastard. Scum. You're obviously a stubborn old pervert, yet you still have the face to lecture me just now. Look, even your tail is raised up. Huh, this smelly fellow with bulging veins looked really ugly under the multicolored light in this passageway. It was really scary. At this time, Enchanting's head was parallel to Chen Guang's. From this angle, she could only see his forehead and shoulders, maybe some chest muscles, and his legs that were spread open to support himself on the wall of the time tunnel. As for other parts, there was no reason for them to appear in her line of sight. But what did Enchanting see? This shameful guy, from under his flat stomach, there was a small tail that was growing in the opposite direction. Look at his lecherous eyes. I've already exposed it, but he still doesn't know shame. He's still looking. Damn it. Enchanting slightly crossed her legs. Being stared at by this guy's burning eyes, she didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a little like going to the toilet. Lu Fei's situation was not much better than Enchanting's. Although she couldn't see Chen Guang's eyes, she heard Enchanting's exclamation and combined it with her current extremely embarrassing position. How could she not know where this guy was looking at? The awkwardness was a little bit there. Shameful, more than a little. This feeling was like a tidal wave that covered the sky and covered the earth, causing one's scalp to go numb and face to flush. Perhaps not seeing was more torturous than seeing. Lu Fei felt that her legs were going soft. For a moment, the two of them almost became soft all over. If it wasn't for Qin Guang's righteous shout to wake them up, the two girls would have lost their strength because of this awkward position. What nonsense are you two thinking? Am I that kind of person? Don't let go of the strength on your legs. Sigh, why don't you two leave? Don't worry about me. Qin Guang's tone was like that of a man of indomitable spirit. After being shouted at by him, the two girls became a little more clear-headed. Although the feeling of going to the toilet was still there, the strength in their legs had returned to normal. However, the traction force from the earth chaotic being behind them seemed to be too strong. Even if there were 6 fulcrums now, the resistance provided was even stronger than when Qin Guang stepped on the ground alone in the real world, but the 3 of them still slid back little by little. Enchanting's face was red, not knowing whether it was because of embarrassment or exhaustion. This guy said that he wasn't that kind of person, but his eyes were clearly still staring at the gap between my legs. Enchanting, I'm going to move a little forward, closer to the wall. Both of you follow me a little. Qin Guang suddenly said. Enchanting was puzzled. What are you doing? Won't we slide faster if we move around? Qin Guang nodded. Of course I know, but now our strength is only a little weaker than the traction force of the earth chaotic being. As long as we find the 7th fulcrum, we might be able to hold on. It's worth a try. Enchanting was confused. Ah? The 7th fulcrum? Qin Guang nodded heavily and said firmly, that's right. Now there are 3 of us, 6 legs, a total of 6 fulcrums. When I take out the strongest 7th fulcrum, we will be able to completely stabilize ourselves. This is the strongest fulcrum of my entire body. Enchanting was instantly dumbfounded. She silently looked at the thing protruding from his lower abdomen. She couldn't complain. Don't lie to me just because I'm not well educated. This is your strongest fulcrum? About a minute later, the 3 of them slid back for more than 30 meters. After paying the price, the 3 of them finally moved closer to the wall. Taking a deep breath, looking at the colorful tunnel wall in front of him, Qin Guang fiercely tightened his waist and pushed forward with force. Go. Pile driver. It's all up to you. With a poochie sound, he actually managed to stab it in. It had sunk even deeper than his toes. Damn, fortunately the wall here was soft. Very good, it was stuck just like that. I can't be afraid. I have to hold on. Even if the pile driver breaks here, I can't give in. No, I have the regenerative ability now, it can't break. However, the earth chaos being was pulling me backwards. What if the downward force was a little too much for me to exert? Come on. Hardening of the earth ripper. Sharpening. Stuck. It didn't slide anymore. Stabilized. It appeared. The terrifying prostate break. Enchanting was completely dumbfounded. Damn. It's really useful. Director, your strongest fulcrum is so strong that it makes one's hair stand on end. How did you do it? Wasn't it very difficult to pull it down and easy to pull it up? Director, you're so talented. Why didn't I die in your hands earlier? Enchanting cursed in her heart. How is it? I'm not bragging, right? Qin Guang blinked at Enchanting. Enchanting's face stiffened, and she said, that, I'm not bragging, but director, can you stop looking up? I feel a little embarrassed. Lu Fei wasn't any better. Qin Guang, don't look. However, he never expected that Qin Guang would give an irrefutable reason. No. If I look away, what if my strongest fulcrum loses its power and softens, then we will continue to slide back, and we will all die together. Survival is more important than anything, okay? Don't worry, today's matter will be known only by the heavens, the earth, you and I, and no one else will know. As he said that, he was secretly glad. Damn, he really didn't expect that at such a critical moment, the old man's pile driver would actually achieve a miraculous feat. My entire life was saved by the pile driver. Heavenly Grail's Cloud City. The fourth person, Lioli, stared with her eyes wide open. My God. This idiot, he can do that? The fifth person, Dear Cry, coughed twice. Sister Lioli, don't be sad. Although his method is a little perverted, the effect is still very good. Chapter 795. This time, the Earth Chaotic One seemed to take a longer time to exert the gravitational force. It lasted for more than half an hour before the powerful gravitational force finally dissipated. Enchanting was slightly better, but Lu Fei was so exhausted that she was almost completely exhausted. When the suction force disappeared, Chen Guang raised his butt and the pile driver saw the light of day once again. Thereafter, he exerted force with his legs and grabbed onto Enchanting and Lu Fei's waists as he charged forth. Behind the three of them, there was a rumbling sound, as if it was the angry roar of the Earth Chaotic One. The buzzing sound of electric current sounded in the communication base equipment room of Utopia without warning. A few seconds later, a small dot that emitted a bright light appeared in the air in the corner of the room. The small dot grew with the wind, and a few seconds later, it turned into a square hole that was more than a meter long. The hole was suspended in the air, but inside was the colorful square space tunnel, and outside was the equipment room. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 rays of light flashed, and 3 figures fell out of the hole one after another. The 3 of them finally appeared in that familiar place. Yes, they were still in the communication base of Utopia, but there was no Heavenly Grail on the equipment cabinet. They were here. This was Utopia, but it was not Utopia either. Chen Guang looked back at the space tunnel, and his forehead was full of cold sweat. That thing was still there. After using its black hole ability failed, the Earth Chaotic One seemed to have gone mad and sped up again. Although the 3 of them escaped quickly, it was still closing the distance. At this time, the bright red light monster was less than 30 meters behind them in the tunnel. It was angry. It was making muffled sounds and spitting red light. Its body almost filled the entire space tunnel. It looked like it was going to eat them, and swooped down towards the exit. The raging Earth chaos being wasn't to be underestimated. Although the black hole's ability was still on cooldown, it was moving at an extraordinary speed at such a close distance. If it were to charge out, Chen Guang wouldn't have the time to bring Enchanting and Lu Fei out of the equipment room. What made him even more desperate was that as the Earth Chaotic One rushed out, it did not know what kind of ability it used, but the 3 of them could not move at all. Although they could still breathe, they could not move their hands or feet at all, as if they were sealed in a breathable ice cube. Lioli and Dear Cry watched this scene from afar. The 2 gods could not do anything about it. The development of things was out of their control from the beginning. Chen Guangning had been able to turn misfortune into blessings all the way into the punishment realm. Azure and Dear Cry had not done much from the beginning to the end. Even the opening of the passage was Nicosi Tempest's masterpiece. It was not that the 2 gods were not capable enough, but because of the special restrictions of the Heavenly Grail. Lori sucked in a breath of cold air. Just now, I thought that by having Nicosi open the passage ahead of time, Chen Guang would be able to easily avoid the Earth Chaos Being's sure-kill move. In the end, I really never expected that. Sigh. Dear Cry asked, is there really nothing we can do? We can only watch helplessly. Lioli nodded, I've tried it just now. The Heavenly Grail has completely blocked all my divine power, and I can't send it out at all. There's really nothing we can do. Dear Cry sighed, this Heavenly Grail, this punishment realm, is really going to be overturned. Even if it's 10 times more difficult, it shouldn't give Chen Guang no chance at all, right? Lioli did not answer her, but still looked at the void silently with her beautiful eyes wide open. No one knew what she was thinking, but there was endless despair in her eyes. Is there really no other way? At this time, Chen Guang had the same thought. Looking at the Earth Chaotic One that was getting closer, he was so nervous that his hair stood on end, especially the countless tentacles that were constantly spreading out from the red ball of light. Just looking at it made him feel uncomfortable. Although it took a long time to describe, it actually happened in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the Earth Chaotic One had already rushed to a few meters away from the exit of the space-time tunnel. Qin Guang's widened eyes gradually became lax. It was not that his thoughts had stopped, but his entire being was rapidly disintegrating under the influence of the Earth Chaotic One's innate ability. Although he still looked like a human, if someone were to blow at him now, he would scatter like a pile of sand on a table. He had turned into a human-shaped sand sculpture. Old Master Guang's heart ached. He couldn't move, and his body was broken. He was doomed this time. Forget it, it would be good to let the Earth Chaotic One swallow him later. At least on the surface, it would look like a complete corpse. If someone were to blow at me with an electric fan, would directly turn into ashes and fly into the sky. Fortunately, no one would be so bored. It's coming. It's coming. What do we do? As expected of Enchanting. Even at this time, she could still shout after a momentary daze. Her mouth was facing Qin Guang as she shouted at the top of her lungs. F***ck, don't shout at me. The air from your mouth is blowing over. Ah. Qin Guang, your nose. It turned into ashes and flew away. My ears. My ears flew away too. Qin Guang silently looked at Enchanting. Although he couldn't speak, he was thinking in his heart, Big sister, can you be more obedient? My head is going to fly off if you shout one more time. Hence, when one was unlucky, even drinking water had to go through the gaps between one's teeth. His ear turned into ashes and was blown backwards by Enchanting, flying straight into Lu Fei's nostrils behind him. While Enchanting was still making a fuss, Lu Fei, who was similarly petrified and unable to move, began to gasp for air. Qin Guang felt that he had never been in such a terrible situation in his 20s and hundreds of years of experience in the Cup realm. The Earth Chaos being that wanted to eat him was a few meters away from him. In front of him was Enchanting, who was flustered and flustered. She was blowing her sand-like head away and it sounded like someone was about to sneeze behind her. Who knew what would happen after Lu Fei sneezed? Big sis Lu Fei, I trust you so much. You are so dignified and virtuous, please don't joke around at this critical moment. Achoo. Some things really shouldn't be raised randomly. Lu Fei held on for less than a second before she sneezed violently. Her body couldn't move and her face was completely facing the back of Qin Guang's head. A strong air current was blown out from her mouth. Then, just like watching a horror movie, Qin Guang's head turned into dust under Enchanting's dumbfounded gaze. The dust floated into the air, leaving a long trail of sand behind. Yes, not only could the real idiot Lord Light turn into sand, but he was also unaffected by gravity under the influence of the Earth Chaotic Being's innate ability. Wherever the wind blew, the sand he turned into would scatter. Head. His head was gone. Looking at the smooth but bloodless neck, Enchanting's eyes immediately rolled back and she fainted without hesitation. Lu Fei wasn't any better. She couldn't understand how her sneeze could blow away Qin Guang's head. Her heart was pounding and her mind was blank. Although she didn't faint, she was worse off than Enchanting, who had completely fainted. As for Qin Guang himself, his feeling was even more unique. His head had turned into flying sand. Logically speaking, he should be completely dead. But the strange thing was that he didn't feel any pain. He didn't even feel that he was dead. His consciousness was still intact and he could even complain in his heart. Even though he had no eyes, it was as if he could still see the things in front of him. This feeling was really amazing. He didn't know if it was the regenerative ability of the Earth Chaotic Being or the collapse and devouring ability of the Earth Chaotic Being. Perhaps, at this moment, he should be in the state of a spiritual body. Forget it, this isn't important at all. Anyway, I'm going to die soon. If my body is completely absorbed, I won't be able to maintain this spiritual state. Qin Guang looked at the exit of the space-time tunnel. The Earth chaotic being was slowly emerging from there. The speed at which its head emerged was extremely slow, even slower than the rise of the sun. Strange, what's going on? Had time been slowed down? Or did my reaction speed become faster? Or did this thing's movement really become so slow? Qin Guang, who was in a spiritual state, widened his eyes, and was extremely surprised. Under his gaze, the bright red ball of light had already drilled out of the exit of the tunnel. Thousands of long and thin tentacles were spreading from the ball of light, heading straight for Qin Guang's remaining body below the neck. There were also some tentacles drifting towards Qin Guang's soul. The location of his soul was exactly the head that Lu Fei had blown away, and was floating in the air. The speed of these tentacles was faster than the body of the Earth chaotic being, but in his eyes, it still seemed to be in slow motion. Qin Guang pinched his fingers and calculated. Based on the speed that he could see with his naked eyes, it would take at least half an hour for the Earth chaotic being to catch his body. He looked at Enchanting and Lu Fei again. Enchanting's eyes were still rolling back and her eyelids were closing at an extremely slow speed. Lu Fei's mouth had just closed, but she was opening it. Her eyes were wide open, and they were also opening wider at an extremely slow speed. It was the look of someone who had just sneezed and was scared silly. Qin Guang thought of a theory. The human mind operated through bioelectricity, and the speed of electricity was the same as the speed of light. The dual abilities of the Earth chaotic being and the tremblers allowed his brain to collapse but not die. He continued to live with pure consciousness. The consciousness formed by bioelectricity could keep up with the speed of light, so under this consciousness, his perception of time was slowed down. Therefore, the illusion that he was having now should be because his consciousness was too fast, causing the flow of time to slow down. It sounded cool, but it was useless. Should I take advantage of this half an hour to live to write a song? Do I really want to live for another 500 years? Qin Guang silently looked at the Earth Lord of Chaos that had just poked its head out. He didn't feel that slowing down the flow of time was something to be happy about. On the contrary, it made him spend more time to face the fact that he was about to die. How cruel. Wait, what am I seeing now? Under his dumbfounded gaze, the space-time tunnel that was originally open had completely disappeared in an instant. Under his gaze, the tunnel's entrance disappeared in a flash. It was so sudden that it caught him off guard and there was no sign of it. It was like magic. The audience had been staring at their own iPhone 7 on the table without blinking, but it just disappeared inexplicably. Based on the fact that the flow of time had been slowed down by at least 1,000 times, the disappearance of the space-time tunnel exit should have happened in less than a billionth of a microsecond. Not only did Qin Guang not react, but the Earth chaotic being was also caught off guard. The two great emperors in the heavenly Holy Grail, Azure Glaze and Deer Cry, understood a little. It's time to turn the tables. This guy can turn the tables while lying down? Chapter 796. I can't take it anymore. I really can't take it anymore. This fuss is too torturous. Deer Cry painfully shook the Deer Cry fruit and muttered. Lioli also patted her chest with a pale face. I can't believe it, I really can't believe it either. Something must have gone wrong. How could this guy's luck be so good in the punishment realm? I don't understand. What's going on? As for Qin Guang, after a brief moment of confusion, he watched as the red light on the Earth chaotic being dimmed at an extremely fast speed. The Earth chaotic being was cut in half at the waist by the suddenly closed exit of the space-time tunnel. As for himself, he had completely turned into sand but was still standing in the same place. On the surface, there were no visible changes, but the cut on his neck began to rapidly bleed. This meant that at the moment when the Earth chaotic being died, his body quickly broke away from the state of disintegration into dust and recovered to a whole body. The blood that spurted out from the cut on his neck gradually flew into the air, but did not scatter in all directions like water sprayed out from a sprinkler. Instead, under the guidance of the tremor being's superpower, the blood gathered back to his neck. As for the head that was blown away, the particles of dust gathered together in the air and turned into complete pieces of flesh, bones, brain, eyeballs and other body structures. They slowly floated back to his neck and quickly assembled on his neck like building blocks. During the whole process, Chen Guang, who was in the state of spirit, watched from the beginning to the end until his handsome, domineering and unparalleled face reappeared in front of him. Then, his spirit went into a trance, and when he opened his eyes again, he had returned to the sight that his body should have. Wah! Beside him, Lu Fei burst into tears and pounced onto Chen Guang. Chen Guang held her in his arms, and on the other side, Enchanting fell softly on his thighs. Chen Guang breathed rapidly and patted Lu Fei's smooth back. "Sister Lu Fei, don't cry, it's okay." "Ah!" Lu Fei suddenly cried out in shock. She looked up at him blankly and even rubbed her eyes, afraid that she was seeing things. "What's going on? Wasn't your head?" Chen Guang waved his hand. "It's fine. You're just seeing things. Maybe you're hallucinating under the monster's control." She didn't know anything about it anyway, so it wasn't a problem to fool her. After saying that, Chen Guang gently put down the unconscious Enchanting, stood up, and walked to the exit of the tunnel. At this moment, the last bit of red light on the hemispherical earth chaos had been completely extinguished. Then, the body that was made of unknown materials slowly turned into smoke and disappeared. Other than the semicircular fruit candy that fell to the ground, there was no trace of it left, as if it had never been there. Bending down, Chen Guang picked up the dark red semicircular crystal. He didn't know what to feel. This unlucky guy looked so arrogant, but it just so happened that when it drilled out of the tunnel, the exit of the tunnel was closed. Even the crystal core and its body was cut in half. No wonder it died so thoroughly. "I say, brother, you're a little unlucky. This must be the accumulated bad luck of 8 generations of your ancestors. That's why you're so unlucky, right?" Lowering his head to look at the fruit candy in his hand, Chen Guang looked at the fruit candy in his hand. The fiery red color was dazzling, and there would occasionally be a radiance flowing within it. It was truly a beautiful sight. "You died so tragically. But I can't let you down for your generosity." As an experienced candy lover, Chen Guang didn't think too much about it. He decisively threw the half of the fruit candy into his mouth and chewed it. It was indeed the taste of dragon fruit. It was sweet and tasty, with a little sesame chewiness. Lu Minghua exclaimed, "Ah! Sister Liuli." He ate the ability crystal core of the earth chaotic being. Liuli didn't pay attention to Lu Minghua. She hadn't recovered from the shock yet. She felt that something was wrong, and things were completely out of her control. She muttered to herself, "This doesn't make sense, really, this doesn't make sense. Didn't the 10 times difficulty realm of punishment want his life? But why did it end up like this?" Liuli thought hard. First, he put his subordinates in danger, forcing him to personally come to the foot of Mount Baral where the earth element was extremely abundant. Then, he was forced to fight to the death with several earth elemental creatures. He either had to die in the hands of one of the earth elemental creatures, or he had to eat the ability crystal core after killing the elemental creature. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to deal with the next earth elemental. When he first absorbed 3 or 4 types of earth elemental superpowers, and then the earth chaotic being appeared, he would be defenseless and fall into a state of certain death. This was the normal realm of punishment, only this could be considered a punishment. Later on, he thought of a way to make use of Nicosia's machinery heart to open a path ahead of time and send Chen Guang to the real punishment realm. Although it seemed like he was able to avoid the earth primal chaos, it seemed to be a successful trick. But the earth chaotic being chased directly into the space-time tunnel. Although this was very F***ed up, in a sense, it was in line with the principle of killing in the realm of punishment. As a killer move, there was no reason for the earth chaotic being to be resolved so easily. Later, in the tunnel, Chen Guang should have died without a doubt, but he thought of such a wretched method, using the 7 fulcrums and the characteristics of the space-time tunnel to save his life. This seemed to be a coincidence, but with his IQ and character, it seemed to be inevitable. When he finally escaped from the space-time tunnel, the exit of the tunnel should have closed immediately, and he would have successfully avoided danger. But the tunnel did not close, and had to wait for the Earth chaotic being to catch up, and even when half of its body was out of the tunnel, then it closed instantly and killed the Earth chaotic being. In the whole process, there seemed to be many coincidences, and Guang was on the edge of life and death every minute and second, but in the end, he relied on pure luck to avoid danger. Something's wrong, what's wrong? Liuli was still frowning. Too many coincidences put together, and it made her feel even more strange. Could it be that, in addition to me and the Bell of Fate, there is a third force controlling his fate? Sister Liuli. Listen to me. This guy is eating the ability crystal of the Earth chaotic being. Dear Cry saw that she was distracted and panicked. A vine grew out of thin air and slapped Liuli's head. Liuli suddenly woke up. What? What did you say? Dear Cry said, Sister Liuli, do you really want me to repeat it for the third time? I will be scolded for being long-winded like this, right? Liuli thought for a moment, and then suddenly reacted, and hurriedly shouted at the void, Guang. Wait a moment. The emotionally stable Master Guang swallowed his saliva. In order to save time, he chewed the dragon fruit candy, and in a few bites, it went down his stomach. Then, he replied, What's the matter? Old Master Guang, who had just escaped from death, spoke with such confidence. Don't eat the Earth chaotic being's crystal, there's only half of it left, who knows what will happen if you eat it? Why didn't you say so earlier? You've already eaten it? Nonsense. This is inertia, I can't stop at all. Oh, alright, what kind of attitude is this? I'll give you another 4-word mantra. Please speak. I wish you peace. Guang's face paled, don't be like this. Then what? You've already eaten it, nothing I say will change anything. We'll talk later, if you're still alive. Sigh, just you wait. Just as Guang was about to clarify things with Liuli, his body suddenly stiffened. The half of the dragon fruit candy that he had just eaten melted in his stomach, turning into specks of light that fused into his body. The superpower brought about by the Earth chaotic being's half-crystal collided violently with the 4 existing abilities in Guang's body. Somewhere in Guang's body that he couldn't see, a dark red beam of light crazily pounced towards a yellow, green, purple, and black light ball. When the two met, the red beam of light instantly gained the upper hand, swallowing and absorbing the other 4 colors. The original 4 colors didn't dare to give in, and gathered together to retaliate wildly. The 5 powers were divided into 2 factions that fought endlessly, swallowing each other, wearing each other down, and fusing with each other. An incomparably profound and complicated transformation took place. If Guang had eaten an entire Earth chaotic being's crystal, the final result would be that the red color would completely swallow and transform the other 4 colors into a brighter and more dazzling dark red light ball. However, Guang only ate half a crystal today, so the red light representing the chaotic being's power was not strong enough. Finally, everything slowly came to a stop. The 5 powers finally fused together. Although the red was still the main color, the other 4 colors didn't disappear. Instead, they turned into 4 streams of light that revolved around the huge red light ball like satellites. At this time, Guang still didn't know that even in the entire heavenly realm, he was the first person in history to eat the Earth chaotic being's crystal. After all, as the existence at the top of the pyramid of Earth elemental creatures, the Earth chaotic being had a natural suppressive force on all other Earth elemental creatures. In the heavenly realm, the chaotic being's true strength was also close to that of a god emperor. It had never encountered such a clean death, and even after its death, its crystal would not be easily obtained by others. Although the side wall of the space-time tunnel was gentle to Guang's pile driver, that was only because when the space-time tunnel was maintaining a stable existence, it was restrained by the power of the Holy Grail, turning the space-time turbulence into a harmless state. However, at the moment when the space-time tunnel was closed, the violent spacetime turbulence that lost control instantly cut through the spacetime turbulence represented an absolute interruption. Its lethality was far beyond that of an ordinary god emperor. This unlucky chaotic being was created by the Holy Grail by skimping on materials, so its strength was far from its actual realm. That was why it died so tragically, leaving only half a crystal behind. The amount of crystal left behind was also very particular. If there was even a tiny bit more left, Chen Guang's previous 4 abilities would be completely devoured. At most, he would become a super weak version of the Earth chaotic being. Because the devouring attribute of the chaotic being was too overbearing, it would naturally suppress all other types of Earth elemental abilities. The other 4 abilities would definitely unite to protect themselves, and the Earth chaotic being's ability would be defeated by the 4 natives that had already formed in Chen Guang's body. There were many coincidences that led to this strange state. When the 5-colored brilliance finally stabilized, although Chen Guang still could not see it, and he did not have the ability to look inside, he was well aware of the situation that was happening in his body. Apart from that, he could also clearly feel that the superpower that he possessed seemed to have reached another realm. It formed an invisible barrier around him, which could actually absorb the power of the Holy Grail that filled the surroundings and firmly restrain it in his body. Although he did not know what exactly happened, he felt that he was very cute. Congratulations, Savior. A new type of Earth elemental life form has been born. Savior Chen Guang, please name it yourself. The voice of the Holy Grail resounded in the sky above Chen Guang and Cloud City at the same time. Both Liuli and Deer Cry were already speechless. Liuli previously felt that today's matter was not simple. Everything was really too coincidental. As one of the 10 great god emperors, she had a long lifespan. When she was extremely bored, she had also fiddled with elemental life forms. However, the elemental life forms represented the spirit of the divine realm. Their birth and annihilation all followed the rules of nature that had existed since ancient times in the divine realm. In particular, the level of the Earth chaotic being was close to the level of a god emperor, and its realm was extremely high. Even the Lord God above the God Emperor could not create a new type of elemental life form based on the Earth chaotic being. But today, this guy had succeeded by accident. It was so easy and casual. Liuli sensed the rich power of the Holy Grail that lingered in Chen Guang's body from afar. She even gasped and said, "If I'm not mistaken, after this new ability has formed in this guy's body, even if the real world and his real world are disintegrated, he can still restrain a certain degree of the power of the Holy Grail in his body. This means that even if the punishment realm ends this time, this guy can still retain the superpower that he obtained today to a certain extent? And not a disposable item that can be thrown away after use?" Deer Cry's expression also became serious. Liuli nodded heavily. Yes. The 2 gods raised their heads at the same time and looked at the dome above Cloud City that was filled with green clouds. Their minds were completely at a loss. Was it the Holy Grail that was causing trouble, or was it the Bell of Destiny that was deliberately controlling the coincidence, or were there other forces that were secretly manipulating all of this? This was too much of a coincidence. This sudden and unforeseen event exceeded everyone's understanding, and even Liuli was not mentally prepared for it. At this moment, Chen Guang had not realized this. After hearing the electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail, he was elated. "Oh, not bad. The old man is indeed the son of destiny. Not only did he not die from the disaster, he can even create a new species." After being elated, he scratched his head again. "Let me name it myself. I'm not very good at naming things." As for how to classify this newly born ability in his body, he was also at a loss. Regeneration, hardening, tearing and cutting, controlling soil, disintegrating soil, devouring soil. What kind of state would it be when these 5 abilities were combined together? He was at a loss. Let's give it a try first. Looking around, this equipment room was a reinforced concrete structure. In a sense, it also matched the characteristics of soil. With a thought, he clenched his 5 fingers again and said in his heart, "Explode." In the next instant, the reinforced concrete walls around the sturdy equipment room turned into powder without a sound. A strong wind blew from the top of the mountain, and the outer walls of the equipment room actually turned into dust just like that. Cough, 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 cough. After a long time, Chen Guang carried Enchanting and Lu Fei as they charged forward for a dozen meters with their faces covered in dust. When they looked back, the scattered dust had already drifted further and further away. Lu Fei stared blankly. What? What's going on? Is there another monster chasing after us? Chen Guang smiled and patted her shoulder. Don't worry. I'm just testing my limits. Don't panic. He muttered in his heart. Just a thought from me, and I explode just like that. It's practically a sauce explosion. What name should I give it? What a headache. Let me think, I can only name it Earth Sauce Explosion. Naming successful. Redeemer Chen Guang has become the first Earth Sauce explosion in the history of the endless divine realm. Old Master Guang was dumbfounded. In his heart, he roared, F***CK. Are you throwing coins? Are you making a staff? I'm just saying it casually. I'm not really going to call it Earth Sauce Explosion. Please let me think of a more domineering name. I'll be serious this time. I'm sorry, but you only get one chance to name it. Earth Sauce Explosion Chen Guang. Standing on the hill, Chen Guang silently wiped his face. I'm really, King Dog. Lu Fei looked at his dejected face and became worried again. What's wrong with you? Nothing. Let's go and save them first. Chen Guang thought about it and decided that business was more important. Earth Sauce Explosion it was. No one would know about this bad name anyway. With a flip of his hair, Chen Guang put Enchanting on his back and took the lead. Sister Lu Fei. Let's go. Lu Fei suddenly exclaimed, Chen Guang. Your hair. Chen Guang held Enchanting small but with his left hand and touched his head with his right hand. Ah, the old man's hair had returned? I forgot to tell you just now. You said that I was hallucinating and thought that your head was gone. When I came back to my senses, your hair had grown back. Lu Fei moved closer and looked at his head. She even pulled his hair. Something must have happened. I wasn't hallucinating. Your head really was gone. Your hair looks really shiny. I can't believe you were bald just now. Chen Guang really didn't know how to explain it to her. Forget it. Don't mind the details. I'm fine now, aren't I? We'll talk later. That's true. Lu Fei nodded. That's not right. What's wrong now? We haven't put on our clothes yet. Going back to nature is the trend now. I think it's pretty good. I'm not used to wearing clothes now. Not good. Alright, I'll think of another way. Chapter 797. 6 or 7 minutes later, the three of them were wrapped in thick leaves and went down the mountain. There was no other way, there was no one on the small hill where the communication base station was located, and there was no suitable target to rob. Although Lu Fei felt a little uncomfortable with the tree leaves scraping against her body, she also knew that this was an extraordinary time, so she had to do extraordinary things. She should not ask for too much if there was no condition. Where are we going now? Lu Fei asked. Chen Guang frowned and looked in the direction of Mount Baral. He could roughly sense the position of the strong faith value thread of the fanatic Xuelin. At this time, Xuelin was still alive and moving towards Mount Baral at a fast speed. She was probably being held hostage. Let's find a car first, then drive straight up the mountain. Lu Fei was a little worried. She did not know what kind of existence Chen Guang's enemy was. After all, there were only two of them at this time. She could not be of much help, and the other person who might be of help, Enchanting, was still unconscious. However, seeing that he was full of confidence and did not take it seriously, Lu Fei did not say anything in the end. On the surface, the Utopia town reflected in the realm of punishment looked almost identical to the Utopia town in the real world. Even the small trees on both sides of the dirt road when going up and down the mountain were the same. However, Chen Guang could see a little more than ordinary people. In his eyes, the entire Utopia town and the sky above Mount Baral were shrouded in a layer of misty brilliance. According to his past experience, this layer of brilliance should be the barrier of the realm in a cup. This was indeed the real realm in a cup. Then, in a strict sense, for this realm of punishment, the Holy Grail had taken out a total of 2 realms in a cup. One was the real world that had merged with the real world, and the other was the real realm of punishment represented by Utopia town reflected in the realm in a cup. Looking at the countless zombie-like clay figurines and terracotta monsters that were gradually gathering under the tree, Wu Miaowan let out a long sigh. She had to run again. She struggled to stand up from the tree branch and with a leap, she landed on the ground from a height of more than 10 meters. She turned around and grabbed a rock to vent her anger. She threw it at the monster that was charging at the front. The palm-sized rock smashed into the head of the tall and muscular monster. With a crack, the monster's head shattered like a clay pot that had been smashed by a hammer, leaving only half of its face. But he was still moving forward as if he didn't feel anything. The yellow mud on his face that had been smashed was rising up, and it quickly restored itself like a cultural relic. In just a few seconds, the guy's head had completely returned to its original appearance. Wu Miaowan, on the other hand, did not feel too frightened. Ever since she started fleeing, she had encountered similar situations countless times. These detestable monsters moved slowly, did not have much strength, and did not have much intelligence. They were simply useless, but they could not be killed. Even if they were crushed, they could quickly recover. There were as many of them as there were hairs on a cow, and they were extremely persistent. They came one after another like a tidal wave. Once they set their sights on her, they would chase after her relentlessly. What was even stranger was that she did not know what kind of tricks they had up their sleeves. No matter where she hid, they could easily find her. Just like this time, they had clearly shaken them off completely, but only half an hour had passed, and they were slowly catching up to her again. Their numbers had even increased. She had only been running for about an hour, but not only did she not manage to shake off a single monster, the number of people following her had even increased from a few hundred at the beginning to more than 10,000. As far as the eye could see, this small slope was densely packed with monsters. They were trampling and crushing each other. They bared their teeth and roared madly as they stepped on one another and pounced on her. Some of the smaller and skinnier monsters were even crushed to the ground. Countless of their own kind stepped on them until they were reduced to a pile of mud. However, these mud-like things were constantly trying to regenerate themselves. Although it was a futile effort, it clearly showed their undying nature. Wu Miaowan clenched the phone in her hand and turned around to run. She looked up at the distant sky and could not help but feel a little hopeless. Although she could always steal a few opportunities to stop and catch her breath, and she could even buy some supplies from the roadside stores to fill her stomach, it was not a solution to keep running like this. After all, she was just a mortal. She could get tired and her body had its limits, but these monsters obviously had no limits. Sigh, no wonder I've been feeling uneasy since yesterday. It must be my strong sixth sense as a woman that's warning me. Sigh, is there really no other way? Although she had asked for Enchanting's help, Wu Miaowan did not really count on her. It was not that she did not believe in Enchanting. Of course, she knew that Enchanting would do her best, but this situation was too strange. It was beyond her knowledge, and Enchanting did not have any experience in dealing with it. She could not even find the way to this place. As for the director that Enchanting mentioned, he was also here. Oh please, the director does have some skills, but this situation is too ridiculous, okay? The director is also human, and he doesn't even have inner force. What's the use of him coming here? Wu Miaowan picked up her phone as she ran. She thought to herself, come to think of it, I don't even know what video my darling sent me. At such a critical moment, she spent so much time and deliberately sent me such a huge video file. She must have her reasons. Maybe it's to teach me how to deal with these monsters. Then, Wu Miaowan clicked on the profound critique of capitalism's backwardness and corruption, after school. What? What did I see? What the hell? Am I blind or what? Something's wrong. There must be something wrong with the way I opened it. Otherwise, I'm hallucinating. I'll do it again. Wu Miaowan did not believe it. She closed the video and opened it again. Alright, I'll give up. That's right, this is really a small piece of the neighboring island country. Darling, you're causing trouble. Are you reminding me not to die a pitiful virgin? I'd rather die a full ghost than a hungry ghost. Screw you. Where am I supposed to find a man at a time like this? The group of monsters below? Huh, it's disgusting just thinking about it. Anyway, she was running faster than the monsters behind her, so there was no point in running faster. Wu Miaowan simply ran as she watched Chen Guang's profound, Maja teaching video. Oh my, so disgusting. This is too annoying. Why are these people so shameless? Public morals are degenerating day by day, and people's hearts are not what they used to be. She watched the video with relish as she criticized it. It was not her fault for not being serious. She also wanted to treat the group of monsters behind her with a more serious attitude, but it was completely meaningless. After running for another 10 minutes or so, Wu Miaowan leaned against a telephone pole and took a breather. The group of monsters had been completely shaken off for the time being. The small video in her hand was still playing. Wu Miaowan watched it a few more times reluctantly. Sigh, forget it. Although she did not think this phone would be of much use, the battery would run out too quickly. She should just turn it off and not be too extravagant. Ah. Oh. Oh. At this moment, Sister Bo's loud voice came from the phone speaker. Wu Miaowan had goosebumps all over her body. She muttered to herself, darling was right. It's really quite regrettable. If she had known this would happen, she would have learned from her darling and been bolder when she had the chance. She would have secretly found a chance to drug the director and then secretly *CK him up. At least she wouldn't have had that kind of regret today. Sigh. After all, although the director was lazy, lecherous, not gentle, and irresponsible, he was still the only man she had ever looked at more than once. Strange, he has so many flaws, but I still only look up to him. Is there something wrong with my brain? Forget it, no matter who it is, God, if you can bestow upon me a Prince Charming who falls from the sky, can save me, and can go with me to save my master, I will devote my life to you. Even if it's 7 days a week, 1 day a day, it doesn't matter. God. Bestow upon me a reliable man. Wu Miaowan gritted her teeth and swore to the heavens. Then, she heard Enchanting's ecstatic scream coming from not too far away. Ah! Xiao Miao Miao. Why are you here? Wu Miaowan turned her head abruptly and saw Chen Guang supporting Enchanting as they stood in a corner not too far away. There was also a beautiful woman beside them that she did not recognize. The three of them looked a little comical. They had leaves wrapped around their bodies and only covered the important parts of their bodies. They looked like visitors from the primeval forest. Wu Miaowan rubbed her eyes and ears, afraid that she was hallucinating. Enchanting, who had just woken up, broke free from Chen Guang's grasp and ran over with large strides. She hugged Wu Miaowan's shoulder. Little Miao Miao, it's great that you're all right. Wu Miaowan looked at Enchanting's waist silently, thinking, this damned girl is not wearing any underwear. What kind of situation is this? I don't care how you came here, but you're still in the mood to play cosplay? And to play so shamelessly? Can you please be more serious? You're crazy. Wait, what was I thinking just now? I prayed to God to bestow upon me a man. Could it be that God really heard my prayers and sent me one? But why is it really the director? I was just thinking about it, I didn't take it seriously. Enchanting started shaking Wu Miaowan's shoulder again. What's wrong with you? Don't get distracted. Come with us. We're going to save them. Wu Miaowan's mind was a mess. She stood up in a daze. Little darling, what's going on? Enchanting imitated Chen Guang's tone. We can't explain it to you in a few words, but it's all right. It's all right now. We're here, and everything's all right now. What do you mean it's all right now? Master has been captured by them. Also, look over there. Do you see that? They're coming. Wu Miaowan turned around and pointed in the direction of the monsters. She gritted her teeth. These unkillable monsters had left a deep impression on her. Chapter 798. Chen Guang and the other two looked in the direction where Wu Miaowan was pointing and saw a dark horde of monsters charging out from the corner at the end of the road. These monsters that looked like humans but were not humans charged forward one after another after emerging from the corner. The presence of 3 more living people made these monsters even more frenzied. They howled and pounced at them. Run. Run with me. These damn things can't be beaten to death. Wu Miaowan acted like a seasoned veteran. She pulled Enchanting along and waved at Chen Guang and Lu Fei before leading the way. The man had come to pray for her. Unfortunately, he was not a prince riding a white horse and wielding a treasured sword. Instead, he was a bald director who had no idea what use he was. Wu Miaowan felt that no matter what, it was better to run first. Unexpectedly, Chen Guang waved his hand and said proudly, "You guys hide at the back first. The next scene is going to be a little more violent. It's not suitable for girls. Stop fooling around." Enchanting pulled him back. Lu Fei did not know what to do. Before Enchanting woke up, the two of them had been talking nonsense as they hurried along. Chen Guang's little demonstration just now almost made Lu Fei boast about his abilities to the skies. Lu Fei was skeptical. However, Chen Guang had indeed turned the walls of the equipment room into dust in an instant, but the equipment in the room did not move at all. Lu Fei had seen too many things today that were beyond common sense. She was starting to believe Chen Guang's words when he said it so confidently. As for Wu Miaowan, her reaction was even more direct. She jumped back and glared at Chen Guang angrily. "Do you think I'm joking with you? I was chased up and down by them earlier. Even if I turn them into mud, these monsters can still grow back. We're no match for them. Run. Don't think that you'll become stronger just because you have hair." However, Chen Guang paid no attention to her and pointed at the ground with his left hand. Iron wall technique. As soon as his voice fell, under the dumbfounded gazes of the others, a wall of mud about 7 to 8 meters tall and dozens of meters wide rose from the ground without warning on the concrete road about 20 to 30 meters in front of the 4 of them. This time, even Lu Fei, who had seen him demonstrate his prowess once, was dumbfounded. Enchanting and Wu Miaowan were even more shocked, as if they had seen a ghost. Chen Guang turned around, flipped his hair, and laughed arrogantly. "Humph. How dare you look down on me? Do you know how powerful I am now?" That's right, this was another utopia town, a parallel space to the real world. It's time to tell you my real secret. Do you want to know my real identity? As Chen Guang spoke, the earth walls on the ground around the 4 of them rose up one after another according to his will, completely surrounding the 4 of them. Not only that, but as soon as the walls were formed, they began to creak and groan. The rough surface of the walls quickly became smooth, and even glowed with a metallic luster under the sunlight. Yes, Chen Guang first used his paragon powers to manipulate the earth to erect the walls, then used his ripper powers to compress and harden them. In 10 seconds or so, he had created a fortress of iron and steel. Don't be fooled by the smug look on his face. Deep down, he was actually quite excited. Even though he didn't understand how the Earth Burner was more powerful than the Chaos Adept, he could tell that the Earth Burner was much more powerful than the Chaos Adept by using his Paragon's ability to raise the Earth Wall with a single thought. The Earth Burner's ability was far superior to the Chaos Adept. In addition, his ability to harden the walls was something the Earth Ripper didn't have. As for the Iron Wall technique, Lon Ju felt that if he didn't come up with a more domineering name before he unleashed it, it would be too weak. The tragedy of the Earth Imploder couldn't be repeated, and he had to find a way to cure it. What is this? Enchanting and Wu Miaowan screamed in unison as they hugged each other. On the other hand, Lu Fei appeared calmer, but her eyes were also brimming with vigor. At the same time, she continued Qin Guang's words and asked, "Who are you? Where is this place?" Qin Guang chuckled. "This is the Earth of the Dolua universe. Before my soul crossed over to the real Earth, I was the most talented Earth Magus in the Dolua universe. Here, please call me Grand Magister Right Qin. The reason why Utopia in the real world became like this is because of its special location. It is located at the intersection of two worlds. Due to some uncontrollable reasons, the two worlds collided and overlapped. The people of Utopia in the real world were transferred here, and they were attacked by the Earth elemental power in this magical world. That's how it ended up. The above was all made up by the King of Stories, Qin Guang. There was only one purpose. Since he had already swept these people up, and he had displayed incredible abilities, he had to give them an explanation. At the moment, he wasn't sure if Enchanting and the others' memories would be erased after completing the mission, but it was necessary to do some work in advance to pave the way for the Great Hoodwinker later on. The three of them were confused. Lu Fei said with some doubt, "Well, I think I heard of a web novel called Dolua Continent. That name sounds familiar." Qin Guang chuckled. "That's just a coincidence. That's not important. What's important is that I didn't think I would be able to come back here. I've only just recovered the memories of my past life. But don't worry, even if I recover the memories of my past life, I'm still the same Qin Guang. Alright, wait a moment, I'll be right back." As soon as Qin Guang finished speaking, he used his Paragon powers again. First, his body was no longer controlled by gravity, and he quickly floated up into the sky. He stood on the top of the wall and looked down at the black mass of monsters and humans that had been mutated by the earth element. They were like zombies that were crazily pouncing towards the wall. He stretched out his finger and continued to shout like a charlatan, "Qin Kuan. Freeze!" The monsters below that were piling up like a human pyramid were instantly frozen and turned into statues. As the highest level earth element creature in the history of the endless divine realm, the Earth Burglar's ability to suppress creatures of the same kind was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. After dealing with the zombie-like monsters, Qin Guang moved his finger again, and the iron wall under his feet turned into pieces of rubble that slowly drifted away. He stepped on a piece of rock and landed back on the ground. Wu Miaowan and the others were completely stunned. This was practically the power of heaven and earth. "How is it? Everyone, right Qin, didn't let you down, did I?" Wu Miaowan stared blankly at the mutated monsters that used to be extremely terrifying in her eyes, but now turned into statues. She took a deep breath and said, "That's amazing, my great director." Enchanting looked at him with some hidden bitterness. "If you're so amazing, why didn't you show your true abilities earlier?" Lu Fei explained on his behalf, "Miss Enchanting, please don't be angry. Didn't he just say that he just regained his memory?" Qin Guang quickly revealed the truth and performed a Western-style salute. "Miss Enchanting, your anger is not without reason. It was I, right Qin, who implicated your excellency. I hereby apologize to your excellency." Enchanting's eyelids twitched. She couldn't shake the feeling that this guy was too mysterious. They weren't far from Utopia, and the three of them walked back to the town in a few minutes. At this time, the town was also empty. Most of the people in Utopia were like headless flies, wandering around the area. There were also some who had been following Wu Miaowan. Chen Guang randomly picked a good car on the street that didn't have the car key unlocked. He then asked Enchanting to find 3 sets of clothes from a clothing store by the side of the road. Speaking of which, it was a coincidence that the shop that borrowed the clothes here was also the same one that the two of them borrowed clothes from in the other world. The owner of this shop also had a strong relationship with Chen Guang. 2 beautiful ladies, we have to hurry and save our companions now. There's no need to go to a hidden place to change clothes alone. I'm the highly respected Earth Great Magician Right Chen in the Dolua world. I definitely won't have any crooked thoughts about you youngsters. What was a truly domineering acting skill like? It was like what he was now. He had a young face, but he deliberately spoke like an old man. Yet, he could still trick others and make them believe him. Oh. All right, Lu Fei blushed and sat in the back and began to change her clothes. Enchanting, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, was much more generous. Anyway, this old faker has already seen everything. There's no need to be so particular. The car flew a long distance away. Enchanting suddenly asked without thinking, Mr. Great Magician Right, didn't you know how to fly just now? Chen Guang coughed lightly. Although I can fly, it's still faster to drive, and I can also save some mana. Lu Fei asked again, mana? Chen Guang was really a little drunk. This worldview that he pretended to be was so *king imperfect. He accidentally spilled the beans. Yes, that's right. In the Dolua world, we're talking about mana, not whatever mana is written in the novels in your real world. Everything seemed to take a long time, but it had actually been less than 20 minutes since he brought Enchanting and Lu Fei to this punishment world. He was rambling, but he actually didn't waste any time at all. The car flew all the way. Along the way, they encountered some mutated monsters that tried to intercept them, but they were all defenseless under Master Guang's mystery universe. It's a deal, there's no discount. Enchanting, who was sitting next to him, stared at his movements the whole time. Mr. Great Magician Right, you're pretty good at driving, aren't you? Chen Guang chuckled. Of course, I've only recovered the memories of my previous life. I haven't lost Chen Guang's thoughts. Then are you right Chen Guang or Chen Guang now? Lu Fei also fell into the trap and asked the question that she cared about the most. I once learned a saying, look at a mountain as a mountain, look at a water as water. Look at a mountain not as a mountain, look at a water not as water. Look at a mountain as a mountain, look at a water as a water. Beautiful ladies, I am who I am, but in your hearts, I am who you want me to be. There's only one soul, but the thoughts will change according to the different lives. Let me give you an example. In your world, I'm a rich university student who's had a lot of twists and turns in my life. But let me make a hypothesis. Let's say that Chen Guang was abducted and sold when he was 3 years old and grew up in another family. Now, he's a laborer who moves bricks at a construction site. His name was also changed to Deng Xiaobao by the family that adopted him. But can you say that Chen Guang and Deng Xiaobao aren't the same person? The 3 of them were stunned. Although they felt that this fellow was talking nonsense the whole time, what he said seemed to make a lot of sense. Seeing that he'd scared the 3 of them into a daze, Chen Guang was about to explode with laughter in his heart. But his joy didn't last long, because a notification from the heavenly Holy Grail suddenly popped up in his mind. Hostage rescue failed. Current number of people rescued, 1. Current number of survivors, 54. Number of people to be rescued, 53. Mission failure if the hostage death rate exceeds 40%. Remaining mission time, 19 hours, 33 minutes, and 28 seconds. Someone died. Who was so unlucky? Chapter 799. What's wrong with you? Enchanting, who was sitting next to him, saw that his expression suddenly changed and asked. Chen Guang shook his head. It's nothing. He didn't tell them about his mission. Telling them about it wouldn't help him and wouldn't make them feel at ease. It would also ruin his noble image as a Grand Magister, right, Qin? By the way, Director, I have something to report. Wu Miaowan, who was sitting in the back, suddenly raised her hand. She wasn't as close as Xian Qin and Qin Guang, especially now that Qin Guang was acting so mysterious. It made her feel restrained, and her speech became very formal. As Qin Guang acknowledged, he purposely used a Western accent from the 90s and dragged his voice. Beautiful lady, please speak. Xian Qin and Lu Fei had goosebumps when they heard it. But then they remembered that he had recovered his previous life's memory. Although they didn't know what level a Grand Magister was, it sounded like a bluff. In fantasy novels, it would at least be at the level of the upper class. In the real world, it would probably be an international master. It was normal for him to speak in a genteel manner, but it was a little uncomfortable. Although the previous Qin Guang gave people headaches from time to time, at least it was relaxing to be with him or chat with him. If he were to act like an old man in the future, it would feel really awkward. Wu Miaowan didn't care about Xian Qin and Lu Fei's thoughts. She threw herself behind the driver's seat and said with a serious expression, Great Magister, right, it's like this. Don't think that the monsters you dealt with were weak and easy to deal with. But in my experience, they weren't just these low-level monsters. When we were separated in different vehicles, there was me, my master, Xian Qin's master, and team leader Xue Lin. If it was just these low-level monsters, although we couldn't kill them, our master wouldn't have been captured. If I remember correctly, most of the monsters on the bus were much more powerful than these ordinary monsters. There were monsters that could harden their bodies into rocks, and there were also monsters that could completely transform into a puddle of mud. They pounced on people and wrapped them up, making it impossible for them to escape. They were like corsets that restricted our movements. This was how team leader Xue Lin was subdued. I've also seen a monster transform into a stone sword, which was held in the hands of another stone man. With a swing of the sword, the bus we were on was directly cut in half. Not only that, but unlike those brainless monsters who only knew how to run after me, those guys on the bus could talk, think, and even cooperate with each other when they launched a surprise attack. They also had some very skilled fighting skills. So, my little sweetheart's master. Wu Miaowan was on the verge of tears as she spoke. Don't be sad. Your master is still alive. Qin Guang comforted. He was not spouting nonsense. Just now, the Holy Grail had clearly informed him of the identity of the dead hostage. It was an unfortunate former Special Affairs Bureau employee. Mr. Wright, how do you know? Wu Miaowan rubbed her eyes. Qin Guang smiled mysteriously. I'm an Earth Grand Magister in the Dolua world, and I can communicate with the elements. The Earth element in Utopia Town is extremely rich, and the Earth has a spirit. Do you understand? Listen carefully. The Earth is whispering to me. Do you hear it? The three girls believed him and listened for a long time. Of course, they didn't find anything. They shook their heads in confusion. Qin Guang put on an enigmatic look again. Sorry, I forgot that you are mortals in the present world. You can't hear the sound of the earth. Chief Archmage, you may be powerful, but you must not let your guard down. Those special monsters were really powerful and well-trained. Apart from that, they had a clear division of labor when they launched their surprise attack. It was obvious that they had planned it beforehand. They weren't like the other monsters who chased us relentlessly just because we smelled a living person's aura. They really are very intelligent. Before they made their move, we were completely fooled. I see. I understand now. Thank you for your reminder. A monster that had human consciousness and had been plotting for a long time? Qin Guang immediately became vigilant. Things were a little different from what he had imagined. At first, when he encountered those mindless zombie-like mutated monsters, he thought that everyone in the punishment realm from the real world had become like them. Although they had strong bodies in the earth element, they had completely lost their consciousness. They acted on instinct like wild beasts. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. At the very least, the combat power that the official members of the World of Destruction displayed in front of Wu Miaowan was much stronger than those zombie-like mutated monsters. According to Wu Miaowan's description, some of the mutated monsters' combat power was comparable to Tremblers and Rippers. If his deductions were correct, then he could conclude that the official members of the World of Destruction not only retained their own consciousness, but the degree of mutation was also deeper, and the species they formed were also of a higher level. He just didn't know if this was due to the setting of the heavenly Holy Grail, or if there was another reason. Fortunately, he didn't kill the monsters under the wall. What Chen Guang had used was the universal anchor that he had randomly named. He only froze them in place and didn't directly blow them up. Their lives weren't taken away, but their bodies were forcefully frozen by the hardening ability of the universal anchor. When the matter was over, these people would return to their original state. The reason why he was so merciful was because he had a feeling that if he killed these monsters in the punishment realm, these people would be as good as dead. Even if the punishment realm ended, those who died in the punishment realm would undoubtedly die in the real world. If they were all terrorists of the World of Destruction, it would be fine if he killed them. However, the civilians were just innocent people who were dragged into this. He couldn't live with his conscience if he killed them recklessly. Combined with Wu Miaowan's information, it further proved that Chen Guang's guess was correct. Although there were definitely spies of the World of Destruction in Utopia Town, it was impossible for the entire town to have them. Untrained civilians wouldn't be of much help to the terrorist organization. Instead, it would increase the risk of information being leaked. Therefore, even if the ambush task force's car was filled with members of the World of Destruction, it could only be concluded that the organization had more members than they had imagined. Moreover, they were extremely powerful in Utopia Town, so much so that they could control the task force's movements without anyone noticing. They could also secretly replace the normal tourists, tour guides, and drivers who were supposed to be in the same car as the World of Destruction. But no matter what, the majority of the residents in this small town were still innocent. However, it was a little strange. There was no reason for the people of the World of Destruction to know that they would turn into earth elemental creatures. Weren't they afraid that they would turn from ordinary people into monsters? Weren't they panicking at all? The ambush task force's plan must have been set up before the punishment realm descended. There was no reason for them to carry out the ambush plan so calmly after turning themselves into monsters, right? If that was really the case, their mental fortitude was too terrifying. It didn't make sense at all. Come to think of it, it was indeed a little scary. Hey, I say, what are you afraid of? While he was letting his imagination run wild, Azure suddenly spoke in his mind. Chen Guang didn't hide it from her. Your Majesty, I'm afraid that the enemy is too strong and our army is too weak. I'm afraid that the punishment realm will disappear without a trace. I'm very tired. Speak human language. Madam Azure, don't you think it's strange? The World of Destruction is just an assassin organization on Earth. This punishment realm is just a parallel world created by the Holy Grail to teach me a lesson. It's not complete yet. It's only a small area around Utopia Town. It can't even be considered a complete world. Why are the people of the World of Destruction so calm after turning into monsters? What fighting techniques? What excellent training. Not only that, they were even able to combine the Earth elemental superpower with the terrorists' military training? Why did I feel like they were the children of fate in the world of punishment, while I was the main antagonist? This doesn't make sense. There's no reason for them to know about the existence of the punishment realm before me. Azure chuckled. Don't forget about your 3 main quests. Why? Your second main mission requires you to destroy the headquarters of the World of Destruction within 48 hours. What do you mean by destroy? Is destroying a house considered destroying it? Of course not. It's killing everyone. In other words, your second main mission is to wipe out this clown organization called the World Shatterer, leaving no one alive. Therefore, compared to others, the people of the World of Destruction are more involved in your mission. It can even be said that they are second only to you. In fact, they are even more involved than the hostages you need to save. And then? Lioli continued, so, when they were pulled into this punishment realm from the real world, these people became your mission targets. Compared to the people you met in the Sea of Serenity, although their souls are more complete, there's actually not much difference. The world of the Sea of Fleeting, which was constructed out of thin air, has a complete history. People who suddenly appeared from nowhere, such as your Captain Annie, also have their own stories and memories. The people of the world of destruction are the same. They have also been given complete memories by the punishment realm. Now, you can say that you are facing the assassins of the world of destruction, or you can say that you are the natives of the Dolua world. Huh? Dolua world? What does that mean? Qin Guang didn't understand. Wasn't this a name that he made up? Why did Azure use it? I know you're spouting nonsense, but this broken world doesn't have a name to begin with. You named it very casually, and since you're the master of the Holy Grail accepted your name by default, just like your marmalade popper. Huh? God said, "Let there be light." Then there is light in this world. The world in the cup that exists based on your will and needs will be affected by your thoughts and will change. Although you can't completely control the Holy Grail, you are a godlike existence to every world in the cup. What's so strange about that? What's so incomprehensible about that? You have to understand that the truth of the world created by the heavenly Holy Grail is actually a part of your will. Qin Guang sucked in a breath of cold air. If Azure didn't say it, he really didn't know that he was so powerful. Thinking about it carefully, he had experienced so many worlds in the cup in the past. Just like what Azure said, every time, it was what he imagined in his mind, what he needed, and what kind of world the heavenly Holy Grail sent. The world is me. I am the world. My will is the source of the world in the cup. So I am that powerful? There's no time to lose. Hurry up. He immediately used his super strong will to imagine in his mind. Please help me change the earth-type monsters of the world of destruction into plump and skinny beauties of all shapes and sizes, who don't like to wear clothes, and who are very open and bold. Please think of something useful. This isn't what you really need. The heavenly Holy Grail isn't so childish. Qin Guang sighed and suddenly understood. Sigh, okay. Forget it. Then what about Wu Miaowan and Xian Qin? And Shui Lin and the rest shouldn't have been injected with new memories, right? Why do you have so many questions? Didn't you say you were going to help me answer my questions? Isn't this within the scope of my reasonable request? I can't stand you. Don't you think Wu Miaowan's actions are very abnormal? Isn't she too calm? Also, have you ever thought about why she didn't stop your fanatic Shui Lin from leading the team in your name even though she already felt a sense of crisis? Also, Shui Lin used to be a very outstanding soldier in your world, and the other people in your task force are also very outstanding agents. Why didn't they realize that even the passengers and the driver had been replaced? Is it really the people of the world of destruction who have the same world-class acting skills as you? Isn't this ridiculous? Qin Guang suddenly understood. You mean, other than me, everyone else's thinking has been affected? Yes, it's just a difference of degree. Some people's memories have been tampered with, some have become walking dead, some have become insensitive, and some have their thinking restricted. That's all. This won't cause any side effects to them, right? Azure shook her head. You don't have to worry too much, that won't happen. Let me give you an example. Have you ever held a phone in your hand and looked everywhere for it? That makes you look like a fool. I have. By the same logic, Wu Miaowan and the other members of the task force didn't experience too much interference. Their previous state was no different from searching for their phones, as I said. It's just that a certain part of their thoughts was blocked. Qin Guang nodded. I understand now. The people of the world of destruction are basically the same as my friends or enemies in the Sea of Future. They have been injected with new memories and a complete worldview. They have become the natives of this world. That's why they were able to use the earth elemental ability perfectly from the beginning, right? Yes. But the enemy is still very strong. They were originally very strong. But what? But kid, can't you have some self-awareness? Do you know how much of a bargain you've picked up? My dear Earth Espresso, Chen Guang. Damn, I thought that no one would notice the 3-word soy sauce popper, but it turned out that someone had already heard it. I can't stand you. In any case, save your strength. Don't use too much force and kill your hostage. As for the rest, good luck. You have to understand that you, a Great Earth flamethrower, have surpassed the Great Earth chaotic ones in terms of level. You might even surpass God Emperors. With that, Liuli went silent. Chen Guang, on the other hand, was filled with disbelief. Lord Sauce explosion was of a higher level than the God Emperor? Why am I so cool? What am I afraid of? If God obstructs us, we'll kill God. If Buddha obstructs us, we'll kill Buddha. Chen Guang had been bitten once, twice shy. The process of entering the punishment realm had been too thrilling and exciting, which made him think that this world would be even more dangerous. Moreover, Wu Miaowan had repeatedly emphasized the strength of their opponents. But now, his confidence had soared to the sky. Chapter 800. He drove all the way up the mountain. With the help of the god of racing, even a small Alto could feel like a Ferrari. At this time, his crotch, no, it should be the brand new BMW 3 Series that was also speeding all the way up the mountain. Even though it was a winding and narrow road up the mountain, it still maintained a speed of about 150 km per hour compared to Enchanting and Wu Miaowan, who were frightened and nervous. Lu Fei, who had absolute confidence in Chen Guang's driving skills, showed a sense of superiority. Not only did she not change her expression throughout the whole journey, but she also poked her head out from the back seat and focused on the surroundings, acting as an observer on the tank. You don't have to be so nervous. Chen Guang did not need to look back to know how hard Lu Fei was working as an observer behind him. Lu Fei looked at Enchanting and Wu Miaowan, who were pale and shrunk in their seats. She smiled and said, I can't do that. Your 2 deputy directors are a little tired, and we are in the enemy's territory. Of course, we have to be more cautious. I can help as much as I can. Chen Guang actually wanted to tell her that even if they were ambushed, he could detect the earth element from afar, so there was no need for anyone to keep an eye on them. However, seeing that she was interested and full of fighting spirit, he really did not have the heart to discourage her. All right. As the two were chatting, Chen Guang suddenly slowed down a little. From the foot of Mount Baylor, the road leading to the scenic area was basically a 2-lane mountain road. On the left was the mountain, and on the right was a cliff that was getting higher and higher. Every certain distance, there was an arc reserved for large vehicles to drive in the opposite direction. At this time, about 300 meters in front of Chen Guang was an arc reserved. However, at this time, this reserved belt was not empty. A dark yellow boulder about 10 feet in diameter was standing there quietly. The boulder looked a little mottled, and it seemed to be a little old. If it wasn't for the dense earth elemental waves coming from the inside, and the ability of the Marmalade Bomber to sense it clearly, Chen Guang would have been fooled. Unlike the notification that the Holy Grail would give him when he encountered the earth elemental creatures in the real world, after entering the real world, he had already passed all the early stages of the quest. In the realm of punishment, it seemed that he would have to rely on himself. The Holy Grail no longer gave him a clear quest objective. There's something strange about the stone ahead. Unexpectedly, Lu Fei, who was sitting in the back row, was the first to point out the peculiarity. Chen Guang parked the car more than 100 meters in front of the stone and asked, Ms. Lu Fei, how do you know? Lu Fei frowned. We've passed through many of these semicircles just now. Since it's a passage reserved for large vehicles, there's no reason for a stone to be placed here. This is the scenic area of Mount Baral. Normally, there would be many vehicles passing through this road every day. You're right. This rock was made by a monster. Chen Guang opened the door and said as he got out of the car. He didn't expect Lu Fei to be so observant and quick-witted. Although she didn't have his ability, she could rely on deduction and analysis to find the peculiarity. Chief Great Magician, wait a minute. Don't get too close. Wu Miaowan, who had finally recovered a little, hurriedly shouted from behind. Chen Guang shook his head and continued to walk forward quickly. He said, "Time is tight, so I won't dawdle. Please don't worry, sir. Right Chen, never fight a battle without preparation." If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried that the car would be smashed by this thing disguised as a giant rock, Chen Guang didn't even plan to stop the car. Wu Miaowan wanted to say something, but Xian Qin and Lu Fei stopped her. He's right. This is his hometown. He should know the abilities of these stone monsters better than we do. Xian Qin stared at Chen Guang's back with a pair of beautiful eyes. From the moment the two of them jumped off the helicopter until now, Chen Guang had given her too many shocks and surprises. Her thoughts gradually changed. Perhaps he really wasn't talking nonsense. Perhaps in his world, there really was such an incredible thing as the soul transmigration of past and present lives. Otherwise, how could he explain the existence of this mirror image of utopia? How could he explain the monsters that had chased after everyone all the way but failed in the end? Also, when Chen Guang called out the names of the Earth Trembler and the Earth Ripper, he himself had made up nonsense. But now that he thought about it, perhaps these nouns had been engraved in the depths of his memory since a long time ago. His so-called nonsense was actually because these monsters from his hometown had awakened his lost memories. That's right, that must be it. Therefore, sometimes it was so easy for people to convince themselves. Things that seemed impossible to find an answer were, in fact, just a reason to convince themselves. Once the motivation to convince herself sprouted in the depths of her heart, even the most incomprehensible things would be able to be explained in her heart. In that case, could this so-called Earth Grand Magus Right Chen really be as invincible as he said? As Chen Guang walked closer, the boulder also knew that his disguise had been seen through and gave up on the idea of deceiving himself. With a loud rumbling sound, the round boulder slowly melted and turned into mud that flowed onto the road. In the blink of an eye, the center of the mud slowly rose up. First, a head emerged, then the entire body. In just a dozen seconds, a stone giant about 6 meters tall appeared in front of Chen Guang. This stone giant's body looked extremely human. His facial features were distinct, and his muscles were well defined. It was obvious that after being mutated, the members of the world of destruction still preferred the appearance of humans. You're Chen Guang, the shameless Grand Magus Right Chen who stole the Earth Saint Core 300 years ago? The stone giant lowered his head and looked down at Chen Guang. His mouth didn't open, but a muffled voice came from his stomach. Sire actually knows my real name? Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he began to chat with him with great interest. In just these 2 sentences, he had dug out the parts of his settings in the memories of the world of destruction from this person's mouth. It sounded pretty good. Sure enough, he was a standard villain. He stole the Earth Saint Core and was a shameless magister. It was really interesting. Of course. My world of destruction cannot live under the same sky as you. Even if you turn into ashes, we will still recognize you. If it wasn't for you stealing the Earth Saint Core, how would our world of destruction be trapped in this evil magic formation? How would we have no choice but to wander to a low-level world? Right Chen, even if you die 1,000 times, it won't be a pity. The stone giant gradually became angry. His huge body even gradually turned red because he lost control of his emotions. Chen Guang learned new knowledge again. In the minds of these pitiful fellows, they were an existence called the World of Destruction Holy Clan. In their minds, the boundary of the World of Cups was a magic formation that trapped them. They didn't completely lose their memories of the real world. In their minds, that life was their experience of wandering to a lower-level world. Is that so? Unfortunately, you're not my match. Qin Guang raised his head and said casually. The stone giant said coldly, "Don't look down on me. Although the magic formation has cut off our channel to absorb elemental power from the outside world, we have already established a connection between the Dolua world and the other world. Although the elemental power in the other world is low-level and stinky, it's enough for our warriors to recover to their peak strength. In order to lure you here, our elders have already prepared for 20 years. Die. Taste the power of the world of destruction, Holy Clan's 9th Holy Warrior." The stone giant shouted loudly. He raised his fist high and punched at Qin Guang from above. It seemed to have the power of 1,000 caddies. However, Qin Guang only stretched out his index finger and caught the stone giant's huge fist lightly. His feet didn't move at all. Even the stone he stepped on didn't emit any dust. The stone giant's heavy fist was abruptly turned into nothingness by his finger. "You're saying that this is your plot? Your goal is to lure me here? Of course. Bastard. Hand over the earth holy core. Ever since we discovered that your soul imprint is also in the other world, we've been planning for this day." The stone giant shouted angrily as he used all his strength to press down his fist. Qin Guang shrugged and looked up at the stone giant. He sneered in a low voice, "I don't even know what the holy core you're talking about is. To be honest, your revenge story is so well made that it could almost be written into a novel. If I didn't know that this entire world was formed from my own imagination, would almost believe it." Even until now, Qin Guang didn't know why the so-called world-shattering holy tribe waited until he was 20 years old to lure him to Mount Baylor. They should have attacked him when he was still a weak child. However, this wasn't important. In any case, they could definitely find a reasonable setting and explanation in their own story. The world created by the heavenly Holy Grail was like this. From an outsider's point of view, this world structure and worldview were full of loopholes. However, if one was in it and became one of the characters, one wouldn't be able to notice these loopholes and would only feel that they were born this way. Otherwise, they would be like those Ocean Emperor-level experts in the Sea of Moments. They clearly knew that the Sea of Moments was not normal, it was a cage, but they could do nothing about it. Even after spending tens of thousands of years, and countless generations of predecessors had sacrificed themselves, they could only be trapped like caged birds in the low-level world created by the transcending heaven Holy Grail. Compared to the Ocean Emperor-level experts in the transient sea, this so-called world-shattering 9th Holy Warrior was even more pitiful. However, he didn't deserve to be pitied, because the soul in his bones was that of a world-shattering killer whose hands were stained with blood in the real world. So, die. Qin Guang's pupils shrank. He activated his earth explosion ability. A wisp of extremely mysterious power emerged from the index finger of his left hand that was holding the stone man. It easily pierced through his fist and entered his body. In the next moment, the stone man's body started to bubble and explode. Every time a bubble exploded, a plume of thick smoke would surge out, bringing with it a large amount of soil and dust. With this move, Qin Guang understood the 9th Holy Warrior's superpower. It was indeed powerful. It actually combined the Tremor's regeneration and Ripper's hardening. Unfortunately, his opponent was a earth explosion. The difference in level was too great. It was like a small herbivorous dinosaur from the dinosaur era was helpless in front of a Tyrannosaurus rex. The stone man screamed hysterically. His body gradually softened and turned into mud that flowed down the mountain road. Billowing smoke and dust continued to rise. "Leave your name, 9th Holy Warrior. You are the first world-shattering person to die by my hand. You have the right to let me know your name. I am called Shurjiu. You shameful thief. The elder will definitely avenge me." Shurjiu's voice gradually became softer. The mud that his body had turned into did not flow very far. Instead, it completely turned into dust and dispersed in the valley. This time, Qin Guang didn't show any mercy. Instead, he completely erased his life. He clenched his fist lightly, and the fingernail-sized fruit candy, in his palm, a mixture of yellow and green colors, completely shattered and transformed into the most basic earth elemental energy, disappearing in his hand like a sponge absorbing water. Qin Guang took a deep breath. This was probably how his fate with the world-shattering technique ended. The first full stop of the final chapter was also the ninth of the world. Chapter 801. As for why there were two Shurjios, there was no need to think too much about it. Numbers were just code names, just like Shurjios. Names like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 were probably just code names in the shattered world. The ranking of one's strength would probably give them code names like Shurjios. Qin Guang returned to the car and calmly started the engine. Wu Miaowan widened her beautiful eyes and looked at her with a complicated expression. She could not understand Qin Guang's fighting style at all. The strength of this stone giant was clearly much stronger than the group of people she had encountered on the bus, but it could not resist at all in front of Qin Guang. In other words, even if Qin Guang could really resist this monster, why did the ground under his feet not seem to be affected at all after he blocked the monster's fist with his finger? One had to know that the monsters on the bus had even completely suppressed her master, Wu Qingming, and Xian Qin's master, Abbess Xian Yuan. They were both martial artists at the peak of bone strength. Great Magus Director, how did you do it? Wu Miaowan could not help but ask. Qin Guang was still focused on speeding up the car. He said calmly, I am a great Magus, and you are just a mortal in this world. It is normal that you cannot understand my fighting style. That's not right. Don't the magicians in the novels chant incantations to cast spells? Wu Miaowan was skeptical. I don't have time to explain it to you. Chanting incantations before casting spells is the method of low-level magicians. When you reach the level of a great magus, you can chant incantations in your heart in advance, communicate with the elements, and instantly cast spells. Do you understand? When you become a great magus like me, you can maintain a resonance with the power of the elements at any time. You don't even need to chant incantations. With just a thought, the power of the elements will listen to my command. Forget it, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. This level is too high. Mortals like you who only think in web novels will never understand it. Qin Guang was getting a little impatient. This Wu Miaowan was like 100,000 wise. Can I learn it? Wu Miaowan was still greedy. Qin Guang coughed lightly. Are you sure? I'm sorry, but I'm studying earth magic, and it's very important for a man and a woman to practice together. You'll have to make love with me for at least 10 hours a day to slowly gain the ability to communicate with the elements. Are you sure you want to learn it? What is this? What kind of wretched sect is this? Xian Qin, Lu Fei, and Wu Miaowan shouted at the same time. At this time, in the deep mountains about 60 kilometers away from the four people, Shui Lin and the others were walking slowly with their heads down. There were at least thousands of different earth elemental monsters around them. They were far more than the ones that Wu Miaowan had seen before. There were tall giants, short dwarves with barbs all over their bodies, and small sandstorms that were always shrouded in thick fog, making it hard to see their true form. Compared to the low-level earth elemental creatures that Qin Guang had seen before, these monsters moved in a strict formation and orderly manner. Although the formation was extremely long, there was no sign of chaos. It was completely silent throughout the whole process, giving off an extremely somber feeling. Walking at the front of the formation was a young man who looked no different from an ordinary person. However, if one were to look closely, one would notice that his skin was excessively shiny, and his face was faintly glowing with a golden metallic light. If Qin Guang was here, he would know that the metallic luster on this man's face was actually a sign that the soil had been compressed to the extreme. His body was even harder than the blade arm of the Earth Ripper. Unlike other monsters, this man's facial features were extremely fine, and his expression was not stiff. His walking posture was also very smooth, and he did not look like a mutated monster at all. At this time, he was frowning tightly as if he was thinking about something. It was this young man who really made Shui Lin and the others afraid to take any action. Not long ago, a former employee of the Special Affairs Bureau tried to escape and was killed by a nearby monster who was in charge of escorting everyone with a spike in his chest. The young man flew into a rage without any warning. A wisp of yellow sand shot out from his fingertip, tightly wrapping around the monster that could turn his hand into a spike. In an instant, the wisp of yellow sand clenched tightly like a fist, and the insufferably arrogant monster exploded in an instant, dying without any ability to resist. After killing his own kind, the young man continued to walk forward expressionlessly, but the other monsters around him trembled slightly, not daring to make a fuss. This young man's strength was clearly a level higher than the other monsters, on another level. Even the other monsters, Shui Lin and the others were completely no match for him, let alone this young man. Therefore, even if they were unwilling and had 1,000 schemes in their minds, they could not use them at all. They could only obediently hang their heads and become captives. The operation had completely failed. But why did this happen? As the leader of the task force and the actual commander of this operation, Shui Lin's heart was filled with indescribable humiliation. He really could not understand it. The development of the situation had completely exceeded his expectations. Previously, when he was acting alone, everything was going so smoothly. Although the people of the Shattered were well trained, they were still far from being able to compete with him, who was a top special forces elite in Huaxia. The entire Shattered world was forced into chaos by him alone. This time, he personally led the team and had the help of 2 powerful internal force experts. The task force was well equipped and well trained. Initially, he thought that it would be a relaxing and merciless operation, but suddenly, everything changed. Without any warning, the operation was inexplicably leaked, and the scattered people were all surrounded. The originally ordinary assassins of the Shattered had all become unbeatable monsters. No matter how good the Special Forces elites and special agents were at military training, and no matter how good the new weapons designed to deal with internal force martial artists were, it was all in vain. Their whereabouts were exposed too strangely, and the enemy's ambush was too sudden. Their strength was too overwhelming, and the task force did not even have time to assemble the various equipment from their luggage. A few of them took out their light equipment and tried to counterattack, but it was useless against these monsters. They were either invulnerable, or they could recover on their own even if they were blasted into pieces. In the end, they captured everyone on their side without any bloodshed. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Shui Lin would have thought that he was dreaming. What was the origin of these monsters? Why were they hiding in this world, and what were they trying to do? Why hadn't anyone discovered such a strange situation after so many years? Also, where did those low-level monsters that were wandering around like headless flies come from? Were they transformed from the civilians of Utopia? Our goal is to eliminate them, so there should be no possibility of us negotiating with them. Why haven't they killed anyone yet? Instead, that young monster is protecting everyone's lives? Also, if they were really that strong, why did they have to negotiate with the country again and again because of me? Also, how could I have been so stupid before? Now that it had happened, thinking back carefully, at least 70 to 80% of the passengers on the same bus were unfamiliar faces. Why did I not notice anything when I was always cautious? Was I drugged last night? Shui Lin's mind was churning with hundreds of thousands of whys. In all his years of life, he had never felt so lost and empty. What would the future hold? The task force members, who had a mission but were defeated for no reason, whether they were alive or dead, whether they could complete the mission, everything was unknown. In other words, according to the usual practice of military operations, the operation had failed from the beginning due to the intolerable error in the early intelligence work. The mission target had changed from a human to a monster, and the mission content had also undergone a fundamental change. All the preparatory work had become empty talk. Not to mention 2 senior inner force martial artists, even 10 or 100 senior inner force martial artists wouldn't be able to do anything. Now, he could only hope that Wu Miaowan could successfully escape and report the strange things in Mount Baylor. Then, the sacrifice of his team would not be meaningless. As for the rest, he would take it one step at a time. In this regard, Xue Lin had no reason to blame anyone. In the past, there had been similar errors and omissions in intelligence when carrying out missions. Just like his own comrades in Xue Lin's team, they were all wiped out because of a similar situation. International missions were not like domestic missions. Unexpected situations were not uncommon, but this time it was too contrary to common sense. As a soldier, Xue Lin did not care about life and death, but he was not so afraid of death. He was mentally prepared for it. He felt extremely unwilling, just because the failure of the operation was too meaningless. The most luxurious Special Operations Task Force in history was defeated without any struggle. Wu Qingming and Abbess Xian Yuan followed behind Xue Lin in the queue. Compared with Xue Lin's frustration and depression, these two sect leaders, who were regarded as virtuous and respected in the martial world, were even more aggrieved. This time, we are really unlucky. I thought it was an opportunity to make a career, but I didn't expect to become a prisoner before any achievements were made. Sigh, Abbess, the reputation of both of us has been destroyed in a day. I'm afraid we will become the laughing stock of the martial world if this gets out. Wu Qingming, the beautiful woman in flowery clothes, said in a low voice rather dejectedly. She came with great ambitions, but in the end, she was utterly defeated. A few words were not enough to describe her grievances. Abbess Xian Yuan was more open-minded. Things have become like this. It's not our fault for fighting. You and I have made full preparations. We even brought our own treasures from our sections. We didn't take it lightly. I admit my defeat. But Xian Qin did not come, and Xiao Miao also escaped. As long as Xiao Miao can report this matter, it should be considered as a great contribution. Our sacrifice will not be in vain. The predecessors plant trees, and the descendants benefit from the shade. I understand the logic, but I am still a little unwilling. Who is like you, so unworldly? It is fine if you die. Sigh, if there is someone who can save us at this time, I promise to marry Xiao Miao to him. Even if he already has 17 or 18 wives, it doesn't matter. It's not impossible for me to be his servant girl. Stop dreaming. Just the young man in front of us already makes people feel invincible. God knows how many more powerful masters there are on the mountain. Don't think that this young man is so powerful, but in my opinion, he is just a small leader. Abbess Xian Yuan hugged the long sword in her arms tightly, her expression cold. The monsters of the world-shattering Holy Clan did not even take away her weapon, which showed the confidence of the world-shattering Holy Clan. They did not think that the attacks of these hostages could cause any harm to them. But there was still someone who made them feel afraid. It was Chen Guang who rushed to the mountain from Wutua town. At this time, in the depths of the primeval forest of Mount Baylor, in a military base that covered an area of about 300 acres, 4 people were sitting in a conference room. Chapter 802. 3 of them wore grayish-white robes and looked quite old. 2 of them had an Asian face, and 1 of them had a Western face. As for the last one, Chen Guang would have an impression of him if he saw him. In the images of the Special Affairs Bureau that Old Master Yan Jing had provided him, the director of the Special Affairs Bureau, Ouyang Tianqing, looked exactly like this. He was wearing a pitch-black cloak, and even his head was hidden under it. It was unknown what method he used to hide his face. Even though the lights in the conference room were shining directly on him, it was still pitch black under the cloak, making him look extremely eerie. The 4 of them looked like they were having a meeting, but they seemed to be absent-minded. Each of them was thinking about their own matters. Ouyang Tianqing was not as calm as he pretended to be. His hands were hidden under the table, rubbing his thighs violently, trying to hide his nervousness. He did not know what was going on. He was perplexed. The day before yesterday, he received a tip-off from his spy in the Guangding General Headquarters, saying that Huaxia was planning to attack the Broken, an assassin organization that was not worth mentioning in his eyes. Ouyang Tianqing, who had lost the upper hand, had turned from a powerful director of the Special Affairs Bureau into a street rat in hiding overnight. Needless to say, he was furious. Now that he was in the dark, and the movements of the Huaxia authorities were under his control, Ouyang Tianqing would not be able to live up to his years of planning if he did not take the opportunity to do something. Therefore, he immediately came out of his hiding place and came to Mount Baral in advance to cooperate with the Broken. As the saying went, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There was no dispute between the two parties, and they immediately agreed. Although Ouyang Tianqing was a general without an army and had no subordinates, he was an expert himself, and the Broken was happy to have him around. At least before the situation changed, Ouyang Tianqing had a higher position when he talked to the Broken and the others. He had the right to be arrogant. He knew how powerful an inner force martial artist was, and he knew that his former agents from the Special Affairs Bureau and the Security Bureau were not easy to deal with. Now that they were well equipped, their combat power should not be underestimated. If he did not make a move, even if the Broken successfully ambushed them, they would not be able to gain much of an advantage. However, Ouyang Tianqing did not think that the Shatterer would succeed so easily. Although their assassins were powerful, the Special Affairs Bureau agents that he had personally trained in the past were not weak either. There was no way they would be so stupid as to fall into a trap. However, none of this mattered. First, he would wait for the world of destruction to suffer a great loss. Then, he, who was in charge of the Central Army, would make a move at the crucial moment and kill the two reckless old women from the small sections. Not only would he be able to deal a heavy blow to Qin Guang's Guangding headquarters, he would also be able to show those old farts in Beijing how powerful he was. Moreover, he would be able to let the world of destruction's assassins understand that even if he did not have a single soldier under him, he was still someone they could rely on. Yes, Ouyang Tianqing had a good plan. He could help the world of destruction overcome this crisis, deal a heavy blow to the General Directorate of Illumination, and easily win over a batch of subordinates who were well trained in military affairs. What he could not understand was that World Breaker's ambush had actually succeeded this morning. They did not encounter any resistance and easily subdued the special task force from Huaxia. Moreover, they captured them alive. This was the first time Ouyang Tianqing was shocked. But what really made him panic was what he saw and heard next. On the projection screen in the conference room, the World Breaker, who was in charge of commanding the operation, had sent a short video to Ouyang Tianqing as a report. In the video, Ouyang Tianqing saw a scene that he would never forget. He could not help but scream. What kind of monsters are they? What made him calm down was the calm expression and tone of the other three World Breaker elders. They did not seem to care about the monsters in the video at all. Instead, they looked as if they were used to it. Later, Ouyang Tianqing found an excuse to go to the toilet and left the conference room. When he walked outside, he realized that the guards outside the conference room had also turned into monsters. He remembered the two young men. They looked simple and honest, but their eyes were glowing. One look and he knew they were promising. Previously, he had thought about nurturing the two of them after he recruited World Breaker. Therefore, before he entered the conference room, he had chatted with the two young men who looked at him with admiration. The two young men respected him very much, which satisfied his vanity that had been lost for a long time. However, the two of them had turned into monsters made of cement. Look at the greenish-gray skin. What is this? Even their eyeballs are gone. And the cement dust is dripping from their faces. This is terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that the two of them did not seem to notice it. They did not think there was anything wrong with them. Instead, they were grinning at him passionately. What did it feel like to have two cement statues grinning at him with cement dust dripping from the corners of their mouths? Even though he might be one of the strongest inner force martial artists in the world, Ouyang Tianqing could not accept it. Compared to them, he was as ordinary as a barbecue stall owner. Did I accidentally fall into a monster's nest? Is the World Breaker not as ordinary as it looks? Is the assassin organization just a cover? They are actually monsters hiding on Earth. Oh my God. At this moment, Ouyang Tianqing's feelings could be described as follows. He was someone who thought he was the male lead. He thought it was impressive that he had inner force. After all, ordinary people were like ants in front of him. In the end, he suddenly realized that the world he was living in was actually the setting of a fantasy novel. He was just the male lead of an urban novel. How sad was that? Other than yelling at the sky that he was cheating, there was nothing else he could say. Ouyang Tianqing returned to the conference room in a daze. What made him even sadder was that the three old men who controlled World Breaker started to talk about terms that he could not understand. World Breaker Saint Clan, Earth Saint Core, Elemental Power, Grand Magus Right Chin, Dolua World, Low-Level World, Magic Arrays, Barriers, a shocking conspiracy that had been set up for 20 years. What was all this? Why did they feel that he should have known? Why did they not think that there was a dumbfounded person here who was about to pee his pants? Every new term was like a knife stabbing into his heart, causing his scalp to go numb. However, the three of them did not feel that there was anything wrong with them telling him all this. If he had not seen the monster that turned into a stone man with his own eyes, and if he did not know many of the people in the video that was uploaded, and they were definitely his subordinates when he was in the Special Affairs Bureau, Ouyang Tianqing would have thought that the people from World Breaker were playing a joke on him. They would not play games to tease him at this time. It was not Halloween today. Also, it was their first time meeting each other, and they had never had any contact with each other before. However, according to the three of them, he had been working with them for 20 years. He was actually the representative of the World Breaker Saint Clan on Earth. They were still plotting to kill the Grand Magus Right Chen and take back the Earth Saint Core. Then, they would use Mount Baylor as the core to attack Earth and rule the world. Wait, Right Chen? Wasn't that Chen Guang? Chen Guang was actually the Grand Magus of this Dolua world? Don't lie to me, I'm not well educated. These people are even more imaginative than I am. Oh, right, they were planning to continue to strengthen the World Breaker Saint Clan after conquering Earth. They wanted to spread the glory of the Earth element to the entire universe. That's right, they wanted to conquer the universe. Are you guys crazy? Ouyang Tianqing felt uncomfortable, but he did not dare to retort. All he could do was laugh along with the other party. He looked like he was praising Ouyang Tianqing's words. How awkward was this? He did not understand why these monsters would treat him as their representative. However, this was not important. What was important was that he could still chat with them. The three of them did not suddenly turn into stone men and eat him up. Forget it. I don't care if they're crazy or not. I'm sitting at the same table with the three most influential great elders of the Shatter Saint tribe. Although I don't understand what they're saying, it's not a problem for me to pretend that I do. If what they said is true, then I will also be in existence above billions of people in the future. If this was just a dream, then it didn't matter. When I woke up, would pretend that nothing had happened. Therefore, even though he looked calm on the surface, he was actually very scared. The little sheep in his heart suddenly turned into a big shark. This kind of thing would be quite a blow to anyone. Suddenly, the expression of the great elder sitting in the middle turned gloomy. He stopped what he was saying and said, "Shurjiu is dead. He just died." What? Who did it? Another old man asked angrily. The great elder coughed twice. Who do you think it is? Who else could it be other than the shameless thief Right Chin? I didn't expect this guy to have changed his body after 300 years. He still has such terrifying magic. I even suspect that he may have touched the realm above the Grand Magus. The third elder with a Westerner face stood up in fear. Impossible. Elemental controllers don't exist. The great elder patted the table lightly. Walter, be quiet. Don't scare our esteemed guest. The great elder smiled at Ouyang Tianqing. Ouyang Tianqing also smiled. He had thought that the Great Elder's face was wrinkled like an old man. Now that he realized it, he realized that these were the cracks on the pottery figurines that had been smashed. He said, "Elder 2, you are too polite. How can I be scared by such a small matter? I, Ouyang Tianqing, will definitely advance and retreat with your holy clan." The Great Elder with the surname Tu nodded and said to Third Elder Walter, "That is just my speculation. Elemental controllers have disappeared since the mythological era. Of course, even if Right-Chin really has a part of the controller's power, it does not matter. We are no longer the world-shattering holy clan from 300 years ago. We have the hostages that he cares about and the ultimate weapon that took 20 years to create. It is not difficult to deal with him. To borrow a phrase from this lowly world, how can the monkey's son escape from the palm of the Buddha? Great Elder is right." The second elder, who also had an oriental face, said seriously, "By the way, Mr. Ouyang, the hostages will probably be here soon. Right-Chin will be here soon. Otherwise, please rest in our underground secret room. If Right-Chin really becomes an elemental controller, there might be an earth-shattering battle. Although you have some special abilities, they might not be enough for you to protect yourself in such a battle. But don't worry, we will not hide it from you on purpose. To let you have the deepest and clearest understanding of our world-shattering holy clan strength, we will use the advanced technology from the real world." "Old Anai, what is that called again?" The second elder, Elder Anai, coughed softly. "Xiaomi and the 360s HD camera will be broadcasting live." The Great Elder nodded. "That's right, Mr. Ouyang. Don't worry and wait quietly in the secret room." Ouyang Tianqing had wanted to run away, so he quickly agreed and left. Originally, he wanted to grow a pair of wings and fly into the sky. However, the world-shattering holy tribe had sent 2 followers to follow him. They said they were protecting him, but they were actually monitoring him. However, the underground secret room provided by the world-shattering holy clan was a few hundred meters underground. It was made of fine steel, and there was a secret escape route. It seemed quite reliable. Ouyang Tianqing felt a little more at ease. This was the setup of the world-shattering. It was a combination of many modern technologies. It was like an iron wall. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the last trump card of the world-shattering. Ouyang Tianqing sighed in his heart. He sat on the comfortable crocodile leather sofa and poured himself a 1982 Lafite. He looked at the dense surveillance screens in front of him and thought, forget it. Anyway, the world-shattering holy clan has no ill intentions toward me. I'll see what they have up their sleeves. Sometimes, he hoped that he was not dreaming. He hoped that it was real. Although it was not good to be a traitor, as long as he could get the power he wanted, why not? If these rock monsters really had the power to rule the world, he would be the first human to officially cooperate with them. Even if he became a puppet emperor, he would be much stronger than being the director of the Special Affairs Bureau. That was the real power. Martial artists of the pugilistic world? Peerless secret manuals? Break through the void? Go and play with them. Only the power that was held in one's hands and would never fall into anyone else's hands was truly precious. Ouyang Tianqing's thoughts were not unreasonable. Whether what he saw and heard today was real or not, it was not a bad thing for him. Based on the footage he saw, 2 warriors from the world-shattering holy clan easily subdued the leaders of Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley. Ouyang Tianqing had reason to believe that the world-shattering holy clan could rule the world. Chapter 803. In the conference room, as soon as Ouyang Tianqing left, Third Elder Walter asked Elder Earth, "Great Elder, I don't quite understand why you value this ordinary human so much." Elder Earth grinned, "He's a very ambitious person. I'm also very curious about the power in his body. He's walking a different path from us, which is to strengthen himself. Although he looks weak now, his cultivation method seems to have unlimited possibilities. If we want to rule the universe, we might have to use the cultivation method of people like him." It's not a bad thing to use him and find more people with similar abilities to become our puppets. Elder and I and Walter nodded in unison. Walter said, "Great Elder is wise." Elder and I smiled. Although the elemental power in this low-level world is thin, the universe is vast and boundless. No one knows if there will be other powerful races. We shouldn't let our guard down. But it doesn't matter. We, the world-shattering Holy Clan, are high-level Earth beings. We have a unique advantage. As long as the core is not destroyed, we will never die. Take back the Holy Core, rule the low-level world, and counterattack the Dolua world is just around the corner. Elder Earth said passionately, "That's right." Even in his dreams, Right Chen would never have thought that we would benefit from this disaster, right? I swear, I will definitely find the despicable person who set up the magic array to seal us here. We, the world-shattering Holy Clan, will never be slaves. This group of pathetic fellows was completely immersed in the imagination brought about by their fabricated memories. They would never have thought that not long ago, Chen Guang and Xian Qin's group of 3 were bragging and casually came up with the name Dolua World. Their memories were refreshed again. They would never understand the true gap between their ranks, just like how ants would never understand how birds soar in the sky. It was the same logic. The true king of the Earth Elemental, the Earth Exploder Chen Guang, was getting closer and closer to them. They couldn't resist at all. How far are we? How much longer? Xian Qin asked anxiously when the car was on the way. Lu Fei asked, "What do you plan to do when we get there? After all, we only have, the 3 of you." Although Lu Fei didn't want to admit it, if they were to really fight with their lives on the line, she wouldn't be of much help. On the contrary, she would be more of a burden. She had also thought of asking Chen Guang to drop her off in advance so that she could find a place to hide and wait for the dust to settle before making any plans. If Chen Guang won, then everything would be fine. If Chen Guang lost, he would have to find a way to survive. As long as there's life, there's hope. There had to be someone alive to avenge him, right? However, from time to time, there would be 1 or 2 zombie-like mutated monsters wandering around. Lu Fei knew that she did not have the slightest ability to protect herself. In the end, she did not mention this matter. If they were to die together, then so be it. Anyway, this was fate. Chen Guang first checked the distance between him and Xue Lin, and then said, "Soon, I'll be there in 10 minutes. You guys don't have to worry about anything, just watch me act tough." Huh? Xian Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei thought they had misheard. What did he just say? Act tough? Chen Guang did not pay attention and quickly corrected himself. Ahem, 3 beautiful ladies. The one sitting next to you is the famous Earth Grand Magus Right Chen in the Dolua world. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Earth elemental creatures are toys in my hands. This so-called world-shattering Holy Clan, which is this group of stone people, is no match for me at all. If I want to squash them flat, I can squash them flat. If I want to squash them round, I can squash them round. It doesn't matter. No, what you said just now was acting tough. Xian Qin was so direct and exposed everyone's thoughts. There's no such thing. You must have misheard. What I said was, just watch me invincible. Yes, that's right. Your Excellency was too nervous that you had auditory hallucinations. The best actor of a generation, Chen Guang's godly acting skills were so good, and he was so unreasonable when it came to bluffing. In fact, some things couldn't be said that he was just bluffing. For example, the story that he casually made up became the truth under the interference of the heavenly Holy Grail. It became the background of the story that really existed in the realm of punishment. What was the biggest lie in the world? It was the whole world cooperating with me to lie to all of you. After driving out for about a few minutes, Chen Guang stopped the car again. The road in front was gone. From the place where he stopped, at least more than 300 meters of the road had completely collapsed. This was obviously man-made. This was originally a mountain road, and there was no other route to go around it. But the Grand Magus was very calm. He did not even bother to get out of the car. He just stretched his head and hand out of the driver's window, ready to pretend to cast a spell and forcefully use the enhanced version of the ruler of Earth to rebuild a section of the road. It was easy and casual. Unexpectedly, Enchanting suddenly said, "Chief Grand Magus, can you let us hear the spell you cast?" "Hey! Your Excellency's request is too much. The spell of every Grand Magus is an extremely precious treasure. It must not be easily read to others." "Qin." "What do you mean others?" "You." Enchanting was really sad this time. Maybe it was because Qin acting was too real. She felt that the memories of the Grand Magus rite were gradually taking over. Maybe it was as he said, that his soul was still that soul, but in her heart, he was no longer the simple Qin. This was really disgusting. One of the things that she was most worried about was slowly becoming a reality. "All right, I admit that you have a very important position in my heart. No, the other two beautiful ladies also have a very high position in my heart. You are all on the same side, not others. Listen carefully. I will only say it once. The speed of the incantation must conform to the three great laws of spellcasting, just like the three great laws of thermodynamics in your real world. It cannot be violated, or else I will suffer the backlash of the elemental power. So when I cast the spell, I speak very quickly. If you can't hear me clearly, don't blame me." Master Guang felt that his foundation in swindling was really getting better and better. It was completely at his fingertips without any obstacles. "Go ahead, we are all listening." The three ladies hurriedly focused. After all, it was magic. Who wouldn't be curious? Balala little fairy, move the mountains and fill the seas. In about a second, Qin finished reciting the 10 words. As soon as his voice fell, under the dumbfounded gazes of the three women, countless gravel and soil flew up from the collapsed road and pressed down on the mountain along the winding road. In a few seconds, the pressure was extremely tight, and the road that had originally collapsed grew little by little. "Let's go." As Qin hollered, he started the vehicle once more. "The road hasn't completely recovered," Ruffy reminded loudly. Qin chuckled. "It's fine. When I drive over, it will naturally recover." Qin wasn't bragging. As the BMW 3 Series sped forward with a roar, the collapsed road spread forward at the same speed as the speed of the car. There was no road in the world, but the place that I want to walk on naturally becomes a road. "You read too quickly just now. We didn't hear you clearly at all." With the problem of the broken road solved, the three ladies turned their attention back to his incantation. Wu Miaowan couldn't help but complain. Enchanting also nodded repeatedly. "That's right. I only heard the first word ba and the last word c. What exactly are you chanting?" Ruffy didn't say anything. She had a nagging feeling that something was wrong. Not long ago, she and her niece had glanced at the Balala Little Fairy cartoon, so much so that she had a vague feeling that Qin was chanting that thing. But looking at his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was talking nonsense. She began to doubt herself again. Ba and the sea? Bahamut? Magic sea? After thinking for a long time, Ruffy probed. Qin was stunned. As expected of big sister Ruffy. Even the Balala Little Fairy could explain it for you. I'm impressed. Qin had read this legend before. Bahamut was a dragon god in Arabian mythology. It represented the universe and was shaped like a giant fish. It floated on the endless sea and had a giant bull on its back. On the bull's back was a ruby mountain with an angel standing on it. Above the angel's head were the 6 layers of hell, above the 6 layers of hell was earth, and above earth were the 7 layers of heaven. Words couldn't even describe the enormity of Bahamut. It was impossible for human eyes to reach it. In the Arabian Nights, it was said that after Jesus took a look at it, he fell unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. In a sense, it did make sense to forcefully drag the name of Bahamut into the attribute of earth magic. If he didn't know that he was chanting the Balala little fairy, Chen Guang would have believed it himself. He also accepted his fate. He really had late-stage naming cancer. It seemed that even chemotherapy would be useless. Seeing him silent and constipated, Xian Qin and the other 2 thought that they had guessed correctly and started chanting the name. Master Guang, who had a bump on his head, didn't say a word. The sorrow in his heart was indescribable. This shameless thief's magic is getting more and more profound. World 1, what should we do now? About 300 to 400 meters above the mountain, 8 warriors of the World Shatterer sacred clan, who used to be the top assassins of the World Shatterer, were looking down at the BMW 3 series that was approaching rapidly from not far away. The person called World 1 looked very similar to the young man who had led the arrest team. He still had human facial features, but there was a pitch-black horn protruding from his forehead. The aura around the horn was similar to that of the Earth Destroyer that Chen Guang had dealt with before, but his aura seemed to be stronger. Apart from that, World 1's entire body was covered in ferocious-looking fangs. Perhaps it couldn't be called wrapped, but rather grown on his body. Perhaps this was his compromise for not being able to maintain his human form. It doesn't matter. When he moves forward and is directly below us, the 8 of us will attack together. Even if he's a great magister, he won't be able to resist us. But just now, Elder Ward asked us to only perform the duty of monitoring and delaying. He didn't ask us to attack. World 9 is already dead. Right, Chen's magic isn't like those ordinary people's toys. It can be fatal. A monster that looked similar to the Earth Destroyer beside World 1 said. It had a pair of huge blade-like arms. World 1 slapped the blade-like monster's face. Trash. World 8, you're trash just like World 9. Do you think we're all like you 2 brothers? Cowards. The Elder ordered us to protect ourselves, but since we have the ability to kill him, why do we need to protect ourselves? Besides, don't you want to feel the power of the Earth Saint Core up close? Don't you want to become an existence like World Sand? World 8's mind flashed with World Sand's cold face. That's right. Compared to the numeric generation of warriors that had mutated into monsters, World Sand, World Shadow, or World Blade, who had titles, maintained their human forms much better. Especially that World Sand. On the surface, he didn't seem to have any changes, but his sand controlling technique allowed him to become the undisputed number 1 expert below the Elder. The world-shattering Holy Clan had a strict hierarchy. They relied on strength and life class. World 8's body gradually trembled. World 1, I want to evolve. World 1 grinned proudly. A few stone-like cracks appeared on his face. He hurriedly closed his mouth and said in a low voice, "It's right that you have this desire. If we don't fight for it ourselves, even if we manage to obtain the Earth Saint Core in the end, there will still be 3 elders and 18 titled rankers ahead of us. How many years and months will we have to wait for our turn to communicate with the Saint Core? How long will we have to wait before we can comprehend the elemental power to a deeper level? Stop talking nonsense. Prepare to attack." Although the souls of these assassins from the world shattering had been injected with false memories and their bodies were stuffed with abilities that made them mutated, the selfishness in the depths of their human nature had never disappeared. The law of the jungle and the survival of harming others to benefit oneself was unimpeded no matter whether it was on Earth or in the so-called Dolua world. Walter had ordered World 1 to World 8, who weren't titled experts, to only monitor and not make a move. It might not be because he wanted to protect them because of World 9's death. It wasn't wrong to say that he had selfish motives. Actually, Chen Guang knew from the start that there were 8 fellows sneakily spying on him from above. However, he didn't care at all. As long as they came, he would guarantee that they would die as splendidly as fireworks. A loud rumbling sound suddenly exploded in the valley of Mount Baylor. When Chen Guang passed through the valley below, World 1 and the others decisively made their move. These 8 people were like the 8 immortals crossing the sea in the Eastern myths. They each displayed their divine abilities. The sharp horn between World 1's eyebrows shot out a ray of black light. This black light grew with the wind and became several meters thick. It swept towards the road in front of Chen Guang's carriage. World 8 jumped down without any hesitation. His pair of blade-like arms flickered with cold light. He chopped down from the sky. The ear-piercing whooshing sound of the wind was comparable to an eagle's cry. The abilities of the other 6 people weren't bad either. In mid-air, all kinds of colorful earth elemental attacks bombarded down in unison. They were determined to kill in one strike. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.